right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? Shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to check this out. Even though you missed the live party, guys, that is the best part. But do not worry, you will still very, very much enjoy this. Just make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and you will never miss another Indian Jesus live party ever again. Check it out really quick. Want to give a special thank you to the sponsor of the stream, my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. All right, let's party, let's party. Oh man, I have been waiting to do this one for a while. Hey, we got Indy Phil in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, 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 welcome. So yes, I am very, very, very excited about this one. So maybe about a month ago, this atheist YouTuber, Rationality Rules, he actually came up with a card game similar to Cards of Humanity, Cards Against Humanity, having to do with logical fallacies and stuff. So I thought it was a really cool way to bring, you know, this kind of dry, boring philosophy stuff into a more fun context. But today, what we're going to be doing is, like I said, about a month ago, he started actually taking Dennis Prager's master course from Prager U. You know, I don't know exactly what it is, but you know, it's the master's program, whatever you would expect that Dennis Prager would be doing there. So you're probably very familiar with Prager U and all the people that have been on there. And Dennis Prager himself has been a big personality for quite a while. But as I always talk about with you guys, you know me, the resident conservative atheist. Keep religion out of politics. It is not helping you. It is not helping. And this is going to be a perfect demonstration as to why. Because we're going to get an atheist dude talking about Dennis Prager's politics, which I agree with Dennis Prager's politics, but the atheist is pointing out things about Dennis Prager's politics, individual details that I actually don't agree with. So it'll be very interesting. You know, guys, definitely hit the poll. See if you think that I'm going to get you to disagree with Dennis Prager. Let's do it. As always, if you cannot hear the video, please let me know.
What is the biggest moral crisis facing the country right now?
Whenever I summarize my life's work, there has been one overwhelming theme: the consequences of secularism. The general modern belief is you can be too religious, but you can't be too secular.
Yep.
But it's not true. If society gets too secular, it ends.
Does it though?
Ends.
Coming from an ever-growingly secular country, I'm intrigued. Maybe it's time to take Dennis Prager's master program.
You've got to ask the right questions about life, or you can't come up with the right answers.
Yeah, questions such as, is Dennis adequately equipped and sufficiently neutral to talk earnestly about secularism? Are we really going to get an objective analysis here?
We become stupid as we depart from that book that people laugh at called the Bible. And this is all a function of the secular world in which we live.
Okay.
This is probably going to be the biggest count of, is it though? If you're in the replay gang, let me know how many you, by the end of the stream, how many, keep count, and tell me how many is it those do we have?
It's clear that I've got my hands full with this one. This is going to be a master's program in something, of that I'm certain.
We're appealing to the mind, the great gift, the separator of the animal and the human, the mind. What is the world in which human rights were enshrined, where women were elevated? These developed in the West. The West was formed by Christianity.
Well, there's no doubt that the West's history is integrated with Christianity. But to say that Christianity is responsible for elevating women, for instance, is quite the claim. I mean, put it this way, it wasn't until the late 19th century, after the Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution, that the West took seriously the possibility of granting women the right to vote. And yet, it seems, Dennis wants us to believe that despite Christianity having pretty much complete and dominating power since the 4th century, it took over 1,500 years for them to emancipate half the human race.
So this is our first objection. our first objection that, oh, this is, women didn't get the right to vote, and oh, these Christian men were so horrible. A lot of women did not want the vote. Now, you're not going to find a lot of women today who would want that right taken away. But at the time, the big argument was that it was connected to the draft, and drafts were happening. And so women didn't want to be drafted. And so they were like, no, I don't know anything about politics anyway. I'm not allowed to do anything else in society. You just take care of it.
Combine this with all the verses in the Bible that explicitly degrade women to second-class citizens, and Dennis's claim becomes all the more wild. But Dennis speaks with the utmost confidence and has an incredible production team behind him, which, of course, makes for a more than adequate substitute for facts. But hey, this is his trailer for his master's program. If we want to really engage with him, we're going to need to take this course in its entirety. And that, my fellow apes, we will.
I'm Dennis Prager, and this is the master's program.
He said both. All right, so here's what I'm going to do real quick. I forgot something upstairs, so I am going to put on the video that I dropped yesterday with a banner here saying, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes. Less than a minute. 1 minute. 30 seconds. Gotta run upstairs. Taking longer to do this. And if I had just not said anything, you would expect me to be like, oh no, it's completely about the money. That's all I care about. All I want is to make sure that she has it. No. All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Let's party. So you guys know I'm a big fan of Patrick Bet-David, and he dropped this video the other day, and I thought it was really cool about him dropping a $1,000 tip at a restaurant, and apparently it pissed people off. Let's see what he's got to say.
So the other day, I gave a $1,000 tip at the restaurant, and I posted the receipt with a story behind it. And people, some of them, lost their minds. I'm going to tell you today why, when you go out there and do acts of kindness, why you ought to share it publicly. And I know many say, don't do it. I'm telling you, do it. My argument is coming here shortly. If you get value from this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. So I don't know how closely you're following on what's going on with art as an alternative investment, but a lot of major companies like Goldman Sachs, PIMCO, they're starting to talk to their clients about alternative investment. Matter of fact, this last year I was at Art Basel, and guess who was there? Goldman Sachs. I had a dinner with them, and it was all around people that are investing millions of dollars into art as an alternative investment.
You guys see what's happening with the banks. Buy some art. All right, I'm back. If you would like to see that video in full, it is on the channel. Please check it out. All right. Where were we? So we had just jumped in, we got Rationality Rules taking on Dennis Prager's master's program. We already had one misstep from Rationality Rules, but unfortunately, I think we're going to get a number more from Dennis Prager. Let's do it, guys. Again, as always, if you cannot hear the video, please let me know. Prager who? I like that. Like Prager U. Get it? Prager who?
For you who don't know who Dennis Prager is, it's worth giving him and his university a brief introduction. First of all, Dennis is most well known as a conservative radio talk show host and author. He has written books about topics such as religion, happiness, morality, the left, Islamism, and America. And at least according to his own website, he is an expert on communism, the Middle East, and the left. Dennis doesn't believe in knowledge in the academic sense. In fact, at school, he was far from an ideal student. As Alan Estrin, the co-founder of Prager U and executive producer of the Dennis Prager Show, put it,
he didn't like school. To keep himself from being bored, he learned to spell.
So this is the format of Prager U, the more short-form videos that he does, more aimed at the youth. Now, when I say the youth, unlike the left, we're not talking about 8-year-olds. We're talking about, teenagers, 20, 21, that kind of thing.
Backwards. He was a class clown. He was sent to the principal's office so often, the secretary named a chair after him. He did the minimum amount of homework. In his case, this meant 0. In a class of 110 high school students, he graduated number 82.
Wait, he did 0% of homework? And there were still over 20 people who did worse than him? How is that possible?
Dennis's grades were so bad that his only college option was Brooklyn College, simply because Brooklyn would take anybody. But it turned out to be the perfect choice.
Dennis thus became a graduate school dropout and is now teaching a master's program at his own university.
Is he though? I think that's 4. Keep count.
Well, it's a Daily Wire, but he often does these kinds of programs at his university.
Thank you for the likes,
Rather
guys.
than traditional knowledge, Dennis believes that what's important in life is wisdom. Not just any wisdom, of course, but that of the Judeo-Christian Bible. He therefore argues.
And again, as the conservative atheist, I have no problem with the values of the Judeo-Christian Bible. It's the claims I have an issue with.
That traditional universities are a place where foolish people are produced.
Secular schools are the repositories of non-wisdom. The least wise places in America are the most secular places. They're called universities.
See, that I agree with. Not because it is a secular place, but that certainly has a lot to do with it.
That's where all the ridiculous ideas come from. Because these are thoroughly secularized people who make up their own ideas about life.
The solution for
that's the distinction that he doesn't make. He said these are secularized people who make up their own ideas about life and about a life. That's not the idea. Jesus Christ. The problem is that they're making up their own ideas about life, not that they're secular. There's nothing wrong with being secular. There's nothing that stops you from being moral because you're secular. It just allows you, if you choose to make up your own ideas that may not be moral.
Dennis and his business partner Alan was to found Prager University in 2011, which later was rebranded to Prager U. Prager U has a very clear agenda. The goal is to counter the dominant left-wing ideology in culture, media, and education. It's worth noting that even though they call themselves a university, they're not an academic institution. You
What? Like, I thought Heisel's University, I thought they were all legit.
will not be getting a certificate for completing their courses, at least not a certificate that's worth more than the paper it's printed on. Prager U's flag.
Hey, we got smart. I am off my game. Zippy the Strange in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Low standard, small dick energy.
Flagship product is the 5-minute video section, which covers a wide range of material from economics, religion, philosophy, and, of course, American values. You can also enjoy some private time with Dennis himself in the fireside chat section, where Dennis sits next to a fireplace and discusses a range of trending cultural topics that matter the most to you and your family. As a small sample, he covers topics such as, should your conscience be your guide? Why do atheists want more people in church? Has feminism ruined work? Erasing gender? Can we learn about economics from the Bible? And why school should not teach children about sex? Spoiler, it's because Dennis didn't have to learn about sex in school, and he's obviously turned out just fine.
I have opposed sex education in schools from the beginning. I had no sex education in my school, and I knew about sex.
Prager U also offers a large variety of kid shows that you can just trust, for 2nd graders up to 6th graders and beyond. This is a guaranteed woke-free zone where kids can learn classic American values.
Sounds good to me. Now, it doesn't say that they're pushing conservative values or Republican values. It's saying what they're not pushing. Sounds good to me.
Prager U has, according to Dennis, become the most viewed conservative video site in the world, with 1 billion views a year, more than half the people under the age of 35. Considering that Dennis has a somewhat negative attitude when it comes to knowledge, it is perhaps not surprising to learn that Prager U is currently in a legal battle with NewsGuard, an organization which combats misinformation by rating the credibility of news and information on websites. Indeed, Dennis is quite the character. He's despised by many, but also loved by many. Anyhow, with our host being introduced, let's take a look, shall we, at his master's program so we can see what insights he has to offer.
All right, are you ready? It's time to define thy terms.
Hi, welcome to the Master's Program. I'm Dennis Prager. This is part 1 of what I call the consequences of secularism, or to be precise, the terrible consequences of secularism.
With an introduction like that, I must admit that I am intrigued. Is Dennis going to present something completely new and revolutionary in the perennial debate between religion and secularism? I can barely contain my excitement as I sit down to watch the first 2 episodes, in which Dennis shows us what the terrible consequences of secularism are. According to Dennis, that is. Dennis begins by emphasizing the plight of what he calls secular extremism.
So again, if you're not familiar, I kind of assume that, secular, just meaning non-religious. That's all that secular means, is not religious.
So I'm sure you've all heard that some people are religious extremists.
We've all heard about that, and that's a pretty strong argument, full stop, right there, against religion. He's going to try to make the case that secularism can bring you to this or worse, but it would have to be not even equal. It would have to be worse. I don't remember any secular terrorist groups anywhere near something like the Crusades or ISIS or anything like that.
Oh, and I should say, yes, whenever Dennis talks negatively about religion, he accompanies it with imagery and footage of primarily Islam. He could have used imagery off, for instance, the Ku Klux Klan, anti-abortion violence, anti-minority violence, pogroms in Romania, and so on.
Fair assessment.
But no, throughout the entirety of his series, whenever he speaks positively about religion, he shows imagery relating to Judaism and Christianity. And the few times he talks negatively about religion, he shows imagery of Islam and Hinduism.
And I don't think there would be a problem with that if Dennis were, and again, I'm just, getting this secondhand from Rationality Rules here, aka Stephen. I'm only getting the information from him, just like you guys. But I don't necessarily think that would have a problem unless he's willing to highlight the fact that some religions are better than others, which I would agree with.
Have you ever heard of secular extremists or
Nope.
secular extremism?
Well, yes, but not because they are secular. They are extremists who happen not to be religious. So, for instance, we just saw this a thing with animal rights. They were doing this, I don't remember what it was, but they were doing this huge thing. They're secular. They have nothing to do with God. That's secular extremism. But that has nothing to do with not being religious.
No. And you know why? Because the general modern belief is you can be too religious, but you can't be too secular. It's like being too rich or too happy or too healthy. You can't be too secular.
You can't be too secular.
But it's not true. If society gets too secular, it ends.
Does it though?
That's right, it ends. It is the end of the civilization as we have known it. It is a catastrophe.
And yes, Dennis will continue to depict secularism as if it's anarchy. Get used to it. Right then, with Dennis's central thesis being that secularism ends civilization, the definition of secularism is, of course, paramount. So, how does he define it?
Before he goes there, we had the initial poll. Do you think I will be able to convince you that Prager failed? Only one of you said yes. So I'm very interested to do this poll again at the end. And remember, it's anonymous, so you can be honest.
He doesn't. Not at all. And whether you appreciate Dennis or not, surely we can all agree that this is a pretty big problem, no? If Dennis's argument is that secularism ends society, then it's incumbent upon him to, at the very least, define secularism.
So now we're seeing a leftist tactic. Semantic obfuscation. By not defining what secularism means, then you can shape it to whatever bad or good thing that you want it to be. Dennis isn't dumb. Dennis knows why he did that.
But nope, we'll have to do that for him. For our own benefit, then, what is the definition of secularism? The term itself was first used by the English newspaper editor George Holyoake in the mid-19th century in an attempt to move away from the negative connotations pressed upon atheism at the time.
Zippy, you think everybody's a grifter? Like, what do you think a grifter is? A grifter is somebody who is portraying ideas, beliefs, etc. that they don't believe in themselves. Not just people who are wrong about stuff. Like, you don't think Dennis Prager is a Christian conservative? Like, show me any evidence to that fact.
For George, secularism was defined as the study of promoting human welfare by material means, measuring human welfare by the utilitarian rule, and making the service of others a duty of life. A series of principles intended for the guidance of those who find theology indefinite or inadequate or deem it unreliable.
Yeah, but wouldn't that just mean that he actually cares about the things? You can't judge whether somebody is a grifter or not based on their passion, because you can have a dispassionate grifter, you can have a very passionate grifter, you can have a dispassionate person who is serious. So the fervor with which they give their message isn't by itself anything that would tell you who is a grifter or not. It's a specific term, and you knock down the importance of calling out people who are actually lying to their audiences about what they believe when you call everybody who gets something wrong or everybody you don't agree with a grifter.
The definition of secularism has, however, significantly evolved since George's time, and to insist that we today use the original definition is to commit a fallacy of etymology. I bring this up since, unfortunately, when defining key words, appealing to etymology is very common. But if we are to play this game, then Christians are atheists.
So this was the debunked game that I was talking about, similar to Cards Against Humanity. He made it up. Check it out. It is very cool, and it will make you good at arguing. Hey, we got Dan Jensen in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party, brother. So glad to see you. Glad you are here. Please, please, please take Dan's advice. Welcome, brother.
Since the etymological root of atheism pertains to those who reject the Athenian gods. Let's take a modern definition, then, from the horse's mouth. The British National Secular Society provides 3 alternative definitions of secularism. They are as follows. 1. Separation of religious institutions from state institutions, and a public sphere where religion may participate but not dominate. 2. Freedom to practice one's faith or belief without harming others, or to change it or not have one according to one's own conscience. 3. Equality, so that our religious beliefs or lack of them doesn't put any of us at an advantage or a disadvantage. In general life, these definitions are more than sufficient, but not for Dennis, nor the religious conservative bubble that he belongs to. As we're going to go on to see, to make any sense of any of the statements that Dennis makes about secularism, we need an extremely loose definition. Here's the closest respectful definition I could dig up, which can be found in Professor Philip Zuckerman's book, Society Without God. As with any adjective, there is no single definite or absolute meaning of secular that everybody can agree with.
Ah, okay. So that's where I would assume that, like before I said, the whole semantic obfuscation thing, secular does have a meaning. Whether it has an absolute meaning is very different, as he goes, this Zuckerman goes on to say. But I would bet that Prager, I don't know why I can't talk tonight, knows this quote as with any adjective, there's no single definition or absolute meaning of secular that everybody can agree on. And that's why he's happy to just obfuscate the meaning.
Rather, its meaning is nebulous and fuzzy, and changes over time and in different contexts. But generally, when we speak of something being secular, be it a person, song, or government, we basically mean that
it is not religious.
Upon scrutiny, secularism isn't the most robustly defined word, that's for sure. But in a nutshell, we can say that something is secular if it's not religious. That is, it's not subject to or bound by religious rule. Stated otherwise, to say that something is secular is to say that religion doesn't belong in this particular space. Now, that doesn't mean that religion can't belong in other spaces. It just means that it doesn't belong in this space.
Is this not what I've been preaching to you guys? Is this not what I've been preaching to you guys? There is a time and a place for religion, and politics is not it.
Much like if I have a spaghetti bolognese, I might say that this meal is apple-free. There are meals where apples are appropriate, but this isn't one of them. A secular state, then, is one that doesn't subject or bound its members by religious rule. But that doesn't mean that it's against religion altogether. Who you worship in private isn't my business. It becomes my business when you want to have your cake and make me eat it too. Moving on, Dennis clearly states that he's not going to promote any specific religion. No, he wants us to know that he's going to appeal to our intellect.
I am appealing to your intellect, not to your beliefs, not to your theology or lack of theology. If you are an honest atheist, you can agree with every single thing I am about to say.
All right, there's the challenge. If I am an honest atheist, which I believe I am, then I will agree with everything that Dennis says. And a lot of times I do agree with what Dennis says. So I don't necessarily think that that's a huge, but let's find out.
As just seen, he emphasizes that if you are an intellectually honest atheist, you can agree with everything he has to say, which of course implies that if we don't agree with everything he has to say, we're not intellectually honest.
Real quick aside, sir, obviously you meant pizza. Do you know what they call this? Let me know if you know what they call this.
Smart, right? This is made all the more clearer in his conclusion, where he states,
You may not believe in God.
Nope.
You may be completely irreligious.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with anything I have said. All you need to be is intellectually honest and care about humanity.
Okay, I do.
In order to worry about what the death of God, the Bible, and Judeo-Christian values mean.
Ah, so again, see how he lumped them all together. He lumped them all together. Let's put the captions back on. They were showing a bunch of words, I figured. But listen to it again.
All you need to be is intellectually honest.
Okay, so we're being intellectually honest.
And care about humanity.
I care about humanity.
In order to worry.
I am worried.
About what the death of God, the
the death of God,
Bible and
the death of the Bible, and Judeo-Christian principles. This is what we mean when we talk about throwing out the baby with the bathwater. There's a difference between the death of God and the death of the importance of the Bible and the death of Judeo-Christian values. Those are two very, 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 very different things. Well, three different things, but two are very similar and one is very different.
Judeo-Christian values. That's the thing. This has not been an argument for you to believe in God. I might make that another time. It's only an argument for you to understand what happens when he's no longer around.
Okay. Again, you said I would agree with everything you said. I've already disagreed with something, but let's get to it. And Zippy, what I was talking about is this is called Hawaiian pizza. Why does it have a name? Why do national chains sell something called Hawaiian pizza? 'Cause it's good. I would bet money you have never, ever had Hawaiian pizza, especially not from New York or New Jersey. So you can sit down with your trendy ass opinions.
In people's consciousness.
Yep. Dennis heavily implies that if we don't agree to everything he has to say, we're not only intellectually dishonest, but we also don't care about humanity. What? We're quite the monsters, aren't we? And don't you just love how he plays scenes of anarchism as a representation of secularism? Or at least that.
No. This is not anarchism, as we can evidence by the actual law enforcement in the frame. This is not anarchism. This is liberalism in action. This is leftism in action.
That's what it appears to be out of context. I'd say this is cute if it wasn't so intellectually offensive. Now, even though Dennis claims that he doesn't want to make the case for any particular religion over another, he effectively makes the case for two specific religions. And yes, they happen to share a great deal in common and coincide with his geographic background. What a shock.
Nor am I making, number three, I am not making an argument for any one religion. If you understand the consequences of secularism and then decide to be a committed Catholic, a committed Protestant Christian, a committed Jew, a committed Mormon, I'm fine with that.
What about a Scientologist? What about a jihadi? What about... You're fine with that, Dennis? Come on.
I am not here to sell you a given religion. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to...
Except this course, obviously.
Convince you that the consequences of the death of the God of the Bible, the Judeo-Christian God, has been a calamity.
Nope. The values. The death of the importance of Judeo-Christian values has been a calamity. If you can't tell the difference between those two statements, let me know. I'll be happy to explain it. But you have more work to do, and I'll help you there. But those are different statements. Very different statements.
For civilization and for people individually.
You see? Sure, Dennis isn't arguing for any specific religion, but note the examples he gave. They're all of Judaism and Christianity.
And then decide to be a committed Catholic, a committed Protestant Christian, a committed Jew, a committed Mormon. I'm fine with that.
So yeah, Dennis isn't arguing for any particular religion over another, but the only examples of religion he endorses are all subsets of Judaism and Christianity.
I don't really think that's like a logical fallacy. I just think that's, kind of just general hypocrisy. Because he's certainly not in line with Islamic beliefs, or even under the umbrella of Christianity, Mormon beliefs, Jehovah's Witness, any of those. He doesn't want that being propagated through society. CB says, anarchy is without governance. At least that's the common usage as I understand it. Yep. Though I lean to it being the calm before the storm. Bro, what? Slow down. There's only three of us here. Slow down. I'm trying to read while I got other stuff going on. Just slow down and type. And do you not have autocorrect on your phone? What's going on here?
Whenever he speaks of other religions, such as Islam and Hinduism, or indeed anything he doesn't like, such as secularism, he either shows imagery of anarchy and terrorism, or contorts content.
Again, rationality rules. I hope somebody is taking a scorecard on when I'm dinging Prager for saying something and when I'm dinging rationality rules for saying something. This is not anarchy. We don't live in an anarchy. I was having trouble with this word last time. I mean, it could be, but it also could not be. Is there any elected leader of your family? Is your family in chaos? I mean, it might be. But that doesn't mean that it has to be. Most families, I would say, are not chaos. But the point here is that, again, Stephen keeps using the word anarchy when all he's talking about, there's no right-wingers out here. This is all leftists.
Tend to appear as much.
So, and again, we stop at the literal law enforcement. How is this anarchy when you are showing law enforcement? Doesn't really make sense. So he was coming down on Prager for not defining what he meant by secular, which I do think is a mistake, and I do think was purposeful. But now here he's doing the same thing.
And note further that he immediately followed this up by saying, straight up, the God of the Bible. Except, of course, Islam.
The God of the Bible, the Judeo-Christian God, has been a calamity.
The God of Abraham has indeed been a calamity. I can agree with Dennis here, which is damn awesome, because if I didn't agree, then I would be dishonest and I couldn't care less for humanity.
Oh,
Jokes
yeah,
aside,
I
and
forgot.
as already said, Dennis further expresses his allegiance to Judaism and Christianity through his choice imagery. But in case we need more evidence of Dennis favouring the religions of his geography, we know that he stated as much elsewhere and on numerous occasions. He said that he is certain that there's only one God, one version of one God, and that all other gods are just made up.
Whenever somebody says, I believe in God, if I want to get into a conversation with them, I will ask them one question. The God you believe in, did this God give the 10 Commandments? And if they say no, then I respect them. I may even love them, but we don't believe in the same God. My God and Eric Metaxas's God gave the 10 Commandments. Whatever other beliefs we have, that is another issue, and not a problematic issue to me. But
certainly not a political issue, right? That would be a personal, an interpersonal discussion that y'all need to have. Whether you, what you believe about your specific, holy book has no place in those who don't follow it. As you just said, other people, you're not selling a specific religion, but you don't respect anybody who doesn't have your religion. Where does that come from?
if you don't believe God revealed his moral will, then the God you believe in, you made up.
So basically, if you don't believe in the God of those who specifically follow Judaism or Christianity, see, I'm not choosing just one religion here, then you invented your God, unlike Dennis. And as if all of this wasn't enough, when speaking about Islam, Dennis explicitly states in his masterclass that he'd prefer that they were secular instead of Islamic.
By the way, I would welcome more secularism in a place like Iran. I'm well aware
of
that.
Of course. You would welcome more secularism when it's not your religion. I thought you weren't selling a particular religion.
Between the Islamic extremism of Iran at the time of this video and a secular Iran, I would prefer a secular Iran.
Indeed, Dennis thinks that secularism entails the end of civilization.
It ends.
And yet he'd prefer the Middle East to be secular instead of a variation of the Abrahamic God.
Why might that be? Maybe because your whole platform is bullshit. Which doesn't make you a grifter, it just makes you wrong.
That is a religion that is extremely similar to his. That's quite telling. The key takeaway here is that while Dennis is correct to say that he's not arguing for any one specific religion, his additional comments and imagery make it abundantly clear that he's arguing in favor of the specific religions that have power in the geographic range he cares about, namely Judaism and Christianity. It's akin to promoting the benefits of drinking beer in a pub that sells only one beer, all while insisting that you're not arguing for any specific beer. Sure, you'll play clips of your beer being poured when you speak fondly of beer, and depict imagery of other beers when speaking negatively about beer, but this is just you reading too much into it, bro. No. It's not a duck. It just looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, but it's not a duck.
Isn't it though?
And this slippery employment of rhetoric is omnipresent in his masterclass, but I thought it worthwhile giving this overarching example the limelight. Now that we've defined Dennis's terms for him and have established that he's arguing in favor of the religious institutions that hold power in specifically the locations he cares about, we can ask, what specific picture does Dennis paint of the world without a God of the Bible? Firstly, and unsurprisingly, he claims that the dictators who committed the greatest genocides in history were secular.
The greatest genocides of the 20th century, and indeed of basically of history, occurred in the 20th century.
This is the most tired apologetic argument. That, well, what's his name? Mussolini and Lenin were atheists. Okay. Did they carry out anything they did in the name of getting rid of religion? Then what are we talking about? They also ate bread. They also drank water. You do that too. You're as bad as Lenin. This is worse than Godwin's law.
And virtually everyone was caused by a secular regime. How often have you learned that at high school or college?
Oh, yeah, the Nazis were a secular regime. That had nothing to do with religion.
And the answer is never.
Oh,
actually, that's a lie. I learned lots of that in high school. Maybe you just didn't pay attention.
Boy, there's already a lot to respond to here, but
Yup.
I'm going to do so in the next installment. These responses take a lot of time and resources to make, and unfortunately, I don't nearly have the backing of the Daily Wire to justify addressing everything in one installment. That is, at least not yet. What's more, I don't allow myself, like Dennis, to make claims without backing them up.
All right, so you know where he's going. We're going to move into the next chapter, chapter 2. So this is, going straight into the next part, and he just continued with the lessons. So let's see what we got. Hitler knew the Pope, didn't he? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised. Exactly. Gays drink water. I guess we're all gay. What? Like, what kind of logic is that? What kind of logic is that? This is what dogma does to your brain.
The greatest genocides of the 20th century, and indeed of basically of history, occurred in the 20th century, and virtually every one was caused by a secular regime.
Was it though?
Yes, that's Dennis Prager pinning the genocides of Nazi Germany, among others, squarely on the shoulders of secularism. And yes, this is going to be a bit of a rough one to get through, but get through it, we will.
Let's do it.
Why hello, my fellow apes, I hope you are well. Welcome to my second video.
Hey, we got no freedoms in the building. Welcome to the party. So the water we drink now probably can turn you gay. Ayo. Probably, who knows? Turning the frogs gay.
Video responding to Dennis Prager's master's program, in which he expresses what is, according to him at least, the consequences of secularism.
Or to be precise, the terrible consequences of secularism.
In the first installment, we introduced Dennis, the thesis of his master's program, defined key terms, and then emphasized some of his rhetoric.
If society gets too secular, it ends.
And today, we're going to see his rhetoric spiral into dangerous territories. Or, to be precise, we're going to respond to his dismissal of religious war crimes and genocides, and then his insistence that the genocides of the 20th century were virtually all secular. That is, they were caused because they separated their state from religion. Before getting to Nazi Germany and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, let's begin with how Dennis plays down the crimes, wars, and genocides of religion.
How often have you heard? Believe me, if you went to college, you heard this. More people have been killed in the name of God or in the name of religion.
Yep.
And they're specifically usually referring to Christians killing all sorts of people and so on.
As you can tell by his tone, Dennis isn't impressed by such statements. In fact, he mocks them as being examples of college brainwashing.
Believe me, if you went to college, you heard this.
And this is a trend that saturates Dennis's master's program. He's a big fan of the label and dismiss technique. Rather than addressing the credibility of the arguments or the facts that contradict his narrative.
Oh, I'm not familiar with the label and dismiss technique. Let's take a look at this. No freedoms. I bet you love that shirt, eh?
College, you heard this.
And this is a trend that saturates Dennis's master's program. He's a big fan of the label and dismiss technique.
Okay, the label and dismiss technique. Let's see what it is.
Rather than addressing the credibility of the arguments or the facts that contradict his narrative, he simply labels them as part of the secular college establishment and then dismisses them.
And this is...
So another word for semantic obfuscation. You call it secular and now it's bad. Secular now means bad because his premise is that religion means good. So that, which means without religion, must mean bad. But that's not how logic works, bro. That ain't, you're missing a piece.
All a function of the secular world in which we live.
On a few occasions, though, he also gives us what he considers to be a refutation. For instance, in response to those who bring up religious wars and crimes of the past, he says the following.
So before we go back, he says, equality is a scary thing. It grants all liberty. Thus, they have to control their lives via their own will. Thus, dogma is ignored. Well, it should be. It should be ignored. But absolutely, there is a fear that without being handed, whether it's, your afterlife from God or your weekly paychecks from welfare from the government or this, that, whatever, without that, you really have to, without that, you really have to fight against leaning towards some kind of dogma that says, oh, this is all going to be okay. It can be a scary thing, but that's why it's so liberating. The church hates liberty. It has to use fear and force. Wonder why?
Let me give you an example of how exaggerated things are.
Okay, give us an example of how exaggerated things are.
You know how often people give the example of the Spanish Inquisition? Oh, Christianity, oh my God, the number of people it has killed.
So let's just Google how many people were killed in the Spanish Inquisition. 30 to 300,000 people. Look at it there. So as he's going off about, it's just the Spanish Inquisition. Let's remember that somewhere between 30,000 and 300,000. I'm gonna guess it's near the higher end because how would you know? So let's just call it 200,000.
The Inquisition and the Crusades. You know how many people were killed in the 250 years of the Spanish Inquisition?
Somewhere between 30,000 and 300,000. So we've decided to call it 200,000.
About 3,000.
Notice what he did? He purposely took the low end of the estimate. And Dan here says some historians say millions. And again, whether it's religion, it has nothing to do with religion. Just because it was in the 1400s, how would people keep track of how many people died? Exactly, Zeppy, exactly. But, come on, man.
Every one of those deaths is a horror. That's true. But let's keep it in perspective. That's about 12 a year.
Okay, so even if it's 120 a year, based on the high end of that estimate, that's still a lot of people to just be killed for their thoughts. You're just like, whatever, 120 people, get rid of them. That's not a strong argument, bro.
That's not exactly what we call genocide. People don't know that, though.
On this.
That's your argument? Like, well, we killed a bunch of people, but it wasn't genocide, so, it's fine.
I have quite a few things to say. First, note how Dennis merges the Spanish Inquisition and the Crusades.
The Inquisition and the Crusades.
And then...
I didn't even notice that. So now we have... So let's go Spanish Inquisition and the Crusades combined. How is that a thing? Okay, so let's just get rid of the Spanish Inquisition. How many people were killed in the Crusades? 1.7 million. Where's the thing? Really? Well, you can see it in the description here. Approximately 1.7 million people died as a result of the Crusades. That's just the Crusades. Add on top of that, let's call it 200,000 people. Now you're over 2 million people. Doesn't really help your argument, does it, bro?
Proceeds to effectively dismiss the Crusades.
Yeah, and I didn't... Oh, sorry. And yeah, I didn't even notice that he did that.
All of them. 200 years worth, amassing up to 9 million deaths on account of the supposed measly number of deaths that are attributable to the Spanish Inquisition.
So now he's thrown out a number of 9 million. And I have not looked this up. As Dan said, some historians say millions. And that was just for the Inquisition. And we just saw the numbers of the Crusades were magnitudes higher. So again, I don't know for sure, but makes sense to me. And certainly not cleared up enough for me to be able to say I don't believe this guy.
That's not exactly what we call genocide.
Isn't it though?
That is not only irresponsible, but repugnant. Between 1 and 9 million people lost their lives in the Crusades, a series of wars between Christians and Muslims explicitly based on secure control of supposed holy and sacred sites. To put the death count into perspective, if we take the middle figure of 5 million and the population of humanity during the 12th century.
Oh, so let's take a look at this. Let's get rid of this. So we've got population size up here. And then this is a timeline. Okay, so I don't know what he's going to say. So this is, we're not looking.
The loss of life is proportionally greater than World War I.
People don't know that, though.
To quote a prominent source, namely medieval concepts of the past. 900 years ago, crusaders passing through the Rhineland on their way to Jerusalem attacked Jews in towns throughout the region surrounding Heidelberg. Many Jews were killed or converted to Christianity, and many took their own lives in order to avoid baptism.
I wonder if those people were counted.
The events themselves occupy a significant place in modern Jewish historiography, and are often presented as the first instance of an anti-Semitism that would henceforth never be forgotten and whose climax was the Holocaust. As Arno Mayer put it in his study of the final solution, the attack on the Jews in 1096 set a disastrous precedent, depositing a fatal poison in the European psyche and imagination. Now,
So he says, I mean, did he study any wars? The wars the European kings had in their civil wars, half were in God's name. So there's a few tens of thousands over just 200 years. Just 200 years. That's just that's the history of America. Crazy.
I appreciate that Dennis dismisses the writings of such acclaimed historians on account of them not fitting his narrative.
Believe me, if you went to college, you heard this.
But I'm going to assume that you, dear viewer, are sincerely and truly interested in the truth, and so will take academic consensus seriously.
Are you interested in the truth?
I have no axe to grind here. My axe to
Don't you, though?
grind is what is true.
The attack Arno was referring to is the German Crusade of 1096, the Rhineland massacres, and it just scratches the surface of the Crusades. We could, if we were so inclined, talk about the Battle of Ascalon, which entailed the death of nearly all of the opposition. Or perhaps we could discuss the massacre of Iardia, in which King Richard I had more than 2,000 Muslim prisoners of war beheaded. Millions of people lost their lives in the Crusades.
Yeah, but that's no genocide, right? I mean, come on. Dan says they did the same thing to the Vikings. Converted some, and they killed a lot of people that didn't want to convert. That can only be done through dogma. There is nothing besides dogmatic thinking. There is nothing besides adherence to a dogma or an ideology or something. There is nothing that will allow you to do this besides dogma. Usually in the case or in the frame of religion. So he says deaths by 1,000 cuts. There's so many deaths from Christianity as spread out, and and it got out of control. Absolutely.
Wars that were explicitly religious in nature, zealous conflicts over alleged holy land, and yet Dennis has dismissed all of these deaths by conflating them with the Spanish Inquisition.
That's not exactly what we call genocide.
Now, unlike Dennis, I won't sweepingly attribute the entirety of these wars to one specific thing. No.
So we're getting a little bit of nuance from the atheists here. What's going on?
The causes of war are typically nuanced, but I will, as I have, call out the irresponsibility and absurdity of Dennis so assuredly dismissing the brutal regimes of religion. He says he has no axe to grind.
I have no axe to grind here.
But every word that drips out of his mouth is laced with bias. Anyhow, with that, let's get to the Spanish Inquisition, shall we?
All right, the Spanish Inquisition.
You know how many people were killed in 250 years of the Spanish Inquisition? About 3,000. Now, every one of those deaths is a horror. That's true. But let's keep it in perspective. That's about 12 a year. That's not exactly what we call genocide.
The exact number.
I love how he keeps using that clip because that is so like out of touch, and the mental gymnastics that it takes to actually believe that. And this is again, Zippy, why I don't think that he is a grifter, that he's just wrong. It's scary.
number of those killed by the Spanish Inquisition is heavily contested, with many placing the estimated executions 10 times higher than Dennis. But in any case, to focus on the deaths alone is to fail to appreciate the totality of theocratic tyranny. Those who were persecuted, silenced, imprisoned, and beaten by the Spanish Inquisition are of a staggering number. The Church quenched the light of reason, and if it had its way, we'd remain forever in darkness. But if Dennis really wanted to consider religious warfare, then he could have actually addressed the Crusades, right? Or, he could have given the following figure. 800,000 murders, pure genocide in just 3 months. I mean, that would have been a better example of religion being less than helpful, wouldn't it? In his article, Christian Churches and Genocide in Rwanda, Professor Timothy Longman explores the role of the church in the slaughter of an estimated 80% of the Tutsi population in Rwanda.
Wow. So before we get into that, Dan says, Dennis is an idiot, but a smart communicator. I would disagree. I think he is very intelligent, full stop. This is the problem. This is the whole point. This is it, guys. It's not that he's dumb. It's that his brain has been, trying to keep it clean, his brain has been scrambled by dogma, by religion, by faith. That's the point, is that it doesn't make you dumb. You can be one of the smartest people on the planet. But because you have these beliefs that don't adhere to reality, then you end up saying dumb things.
When the genocide finally occurred, church personnel and institutions were, not surprisingly,
I didn't say he wasn't being deceitful. I just said I don't think that he was, again, we're in the context of a grifter. He really believes the things that he's saying. He's just wrong about them. That's it.
Intimately involved. The local militia attacked Tutsi families, burning their homes, killing some Tutsi, and driving out the rest. Local politicians then encouraged Tuts to gather in a central location, usually a church, ostensibly for their security. Once the Tutsi population of the community was assembled, the militia moved in, often with the support of troops, and systematically massacred the gathered Tutsi. These atrocities occurred in a country where the census prior to the genocide showed that an estimated 89.8% of the population were members of the Christian Church. Testimonies account of how militia would stop and pray during the massacres. Yet, according to Dennis, we should be looking at the death of the Bible as the reason for the genocide. But
the list goes on and on and on and on. Special shout out to Rationality Rules. Thank you so much for compiling all this information, and I'm sure you had to pay a decent amount to get into the master's program here.
Here's the crux, right? Dennis and his ilk will dismiss academic consensus and any and all facts that contradict their cartoonish black and white view of the world.
Well, why is that a reasonable position? Why is that something that you can do now in 2023 when you absolutely could not get away with that in 2015? If you had a study, that study was a study and it was a study and that was it. That was the science. But then scientism erased a different type of dogma where, well, a scientist said it. The same guys who made the food pyramid, they said it, so it must be right. Dogmatic thinking.
Because, don't you know, true religion is only what Dennis specifically practices or likes. All other overtly religious practice is corrupted.
So, Zibby says, so it's a logic fail, where he cannot see Christian genocides as bad. Exactly. I'm trying to process this, my brain's slow. No, that's exactly it. Is that he's not dumb, and he is wrong, but he's not speaking something he doesn't believe. He believes this because his faith has forces him to start with the assumption that religion equals good, God equals good, or more specifically, Christianity equals good. Therefore, if Christianity did it, there must be some way that it's not bad. It must. Otherwise, his whole worldview falls apart. And so instead of realizing, oh no, my worldview doesn't make sense, and I need to build it from the ground up again, he has logical failures, or fallacies as we call them.
They're not true Scotsmen. Again, I will not, like Dennis, pin the atrocities of the Rwanda genocide on Christianity alone. No, such acts of depravity are never due to one cause. The role of colonialism, which again is tightly linked with Christianity, and above all nationalism, which again, fair enough, is exacerbated by religion, played pivotal roles. These matters are never one-dimensional, and the same is true with all genocides with an explicit religious foundation, such as St. Bartholomew's Day, the sack of Magdeburg, the British Civil War in Ireland and Bosnia. Unlike Dennis, and this is crucial, I've at least backed up my claims with reputable sources and respected scholars that you can go and check for yourself. Dennis gave us nothing but confidence in his own words and mockery of scholarship.
Also known as just saying things. He did bring up some statistics. They were just wrong, so they don't count. Moving on to secular Nazis. Zibby says, I don't understand this path of thinking. Only God is an absolute. Humans and the church are meant to be flawed. Or else there'd not be a point in struggling to be better. I don't understand the path of thinking. Only God is an absolute. Humans in the church are meant to be flawed, else there not be a point in struggling to be better. I'm not sure what this has to do. He's saying that we need to put God back in schools. We need to put God back in everywhere. And by making that argument, he is not doing a good job of it. And so Rationality Rules is, kind of touching on the aspects, and then I'm expanding on those points. So it's basically that despite the fact that I agree overall with Dennis Prager's political stances, how he gets to those political stances are completely unfounded. Even though that's true, I can still agree with him. Whereas on the other side, he will assume that because I'm an atheist, I must have bad morality. Hey, we got the misanthropic altruist in the building. Welcome to the party. What are we lying about today? Well, Dennis Prager's lying about religion, and Rationality Rules is lying about atheism, I guess. Not as much, I gotta say. I haven't been keeping score, but I think Rationality Rules is up. So he says, religion tends to put you on a path to be better, but humans and all things they control are flawed. Fair enough. Maybe. Religion cannot be an absolute. Fair enough. On to secular Nazis.
Hey, just a quick interruption before getting back to the content. That is, content that's only possible because of, well, you. This video is, unsurprisingly, regarded as not advertiser friendly. And don't get me wrong, I totally get why.
All right, well, you guys know what that means, so hit that super chat, please.
We're discussing some of the darkest chapters in human history. Now, as you've probably noticed, we've recently improved the quality of Rationality Rules as a whole, largely because we're now a we instead of an I. Yeah, I've realised that in order to make a true impact, we're going to have to go big or go home, and so I've hired the services of a researcher and editor/administrator with every intention of expanding further. Each Rationality Rules video
basically of history.
But we really can't do this without you.
So again, guys, when I say that stuff, it's not like this is a legit channel. This is 322,000 subscribers, and they still need the help of the chat. So thank you for every one of you who are here right now. Thank you for everybody who's hit the like button, and especially if you have donated, it really means a lot.
Thank you. Now then, back to genocide.
The greatest genocides of the 20th century, and indeed basically of history, occurred in the 20th century, and virtually every one was caused by a secular regime. How often have you learned that at high school or college?
I mean, pretty regularly. When I was there, it was pretty obvious. Don't get your point.
The answer is never.
But I just told you that I did learn that. Oh, and we got another fallacy card.
Yeah, for the same reason we weren't taught that all of these genocidal regimes were committed by people who brushed their teeth. That is to say, even if all of these regimes were secular, and they weren't, but we'll put that aside for now, to conclude that their crimes were caused by their secularism is to commit a false cause fallacy. It's like identifying that global temperatures have been going up since the terrible and catastrophic decline of pirates, and then concluding if we only had more pirates, global temperature would chill out. In other words, even if all of these regimes were secular, Dennis needs to demonstrate that it was specifically their secularism that entailed their crimes, rather than, for instance, their nationalism, colonialism, and/or ramifications for prior conflicts.
Exactly. So the comment that I just put up, it's a logical fallacy to say that and it goes both ways. It goes both ways to say that these secular people created these atrocities, that it was because they weren't religious. You also can't say that because of all of the scientists in the early age were Christian and religious or whatever, that's necessary to anything. Like, everybody was religious back then. It was the science that they did that allowed people like myself to engage with the actual claims and stuff being made, and be able to determine that I don't believe in this. But it's a false cause, as he just called it. Said that I would say statism is a religion. There, I win the debate. I mean, any dogma is I don't even use the word religion. Statism is dogma. Dogma is bad. You were close, but no banana.
And he doesn't even attempt to do this. Not once. All we get is more sweeping statements made by an overconfident college dropout in a suit. The claim that the genocides of the 20th century lay at the feet of secularism is, as I'm sure you're aware, one of the most popular go-to narratives among religious apologists. They spin the yarn that without God, and don't you know, a God that's pretty much exactly the God that they believe in,
The God of the Bible.
people will stop valuing life and kill everyone who disagrees with them.
Will they though? This one is always super interesting to me, because there are very many secular people. We won't even use the word atheist. There's very many secular people all around the world, but let's just talk about America. How many of them are in jail? How many of them have even committed a crime at all? How many of the people who have committed violent crimes in this country are Christian? So maybe it's a false cause. Religion does not make you a good person, just as not having a religion does not make you a bad person. Where were we? So dogma, is dogma religion or part of religion? So dogma is a part of religion. The idea of dogma, let's get an actual definition, because I do use it a lot, and it's basically just an adherence to an ideology, but I want to get dogma. I see you, Dan. I'm coming. So it says a principle or a set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. Incontrovertibly true. So there is a body, whether that is the government or that is the state or that is God. Why aren't your parents? They lay down a set of principles, and by the fact that they have done that, it is incontrovertibly true. So again, the idea that the science was that you had to get jabbed, that was dogmatic, because it was treated as I can't say that word. Completely true. Unequivocally true. But hey, we got Dan Jensen in the building sponsoring the stream. Thank you so much. As always, we know. Oh, you're out. Thank you. Even not even here and helping out. So he'll get this on the replay. Thank you so much, Dan. Here you go, Morty. Every super chat comes with a treat for Morty. Let's get it up for Dan. Thank you, brother. Much appreciated. A lot. And I would say more than people lying about their religious status, I would say that people just don't think about it. So maybe they went to church when they were young, and then they just kind of don't think about it. And then they go through life just, identifying with that label without actually thinking anything. So, it's, there you go. But that has evidence. I can question you and say, well, is it a sentence? Just because you're right about something doesn't mean that it is dogmatic. That just means you're right. But if I were to say I were to say this, isn't it incontrovertibly true that this isn't a question? I'll let you sit on that for a minute.
It ends. That's right, it ends.
Unfortunately, people like Dennis can express these hefty claims without having to back them up at all. They can simply rely on the intuitions and indeed biases of their audience to do the heavy lifting. It's basically the perfect Gish gallop, because it leaves those who would object to overcome not only the vacuous claims, but more importantly the intuitions and biases of his audience, who, let's face it, are not typically interested in hearing objections. In any case, though, we'll give it a go, starting with Nazi Germany.
The greatest genocides of the 20th century, and indeed basically of history, occurred in the 20th century, and virtually every one was caused by a secular regime.
Throughout Dennis's master's program, he frequently shows imagery of Nazi Germany when speaking about secularism and genocide. And no, he doesn't once even attempt to justify that 1, the Nazis were indeed secular, or 2, that it was specifically their secularism that motivated them to commit their crimes.
Because it wasn't.
Not once does he even attempt to justify these claims.
Because he can't. He knows. He knows that the Nazis were not doing something out of the thought of we need to get rid of religion. That would have to be true in order for Prager's position to be correct. But it's not. It's just false.
Given this, we can simply dismiss his assertions. That which is asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. But no, let's go further by starting with a few quotes from the Führer Adolf Hitler himself. As a Christian, I have no duty to allow myself to be cheated, but I have the duty to be a fighter for truth and justice. And if there is anything which could demonstrate that we are acting rightly, it is the distress that daily grows. For as a Christian, I also have a duty to my own people. We tolerate no one in our ranks who attacks the ideas of Christianity. In fact, our movement is Christian.
In fact, our movement is Christian. Said by who? Said by who? Adolf who? Adolf Hitler. Hey, indie film. New sponsor of the stream. DK45 is $6.57. But that doesn't matter. I very much appreciate it. But Morty is definitely going to appreciate this even more. Bring it on up. Morty, come. Come get a treat. Come here. Good boy. Yeah. Say thank you to Indie Film. Thank you so much, brother. Really, really do appreciate you.
We were convinced that the people need and require this faith. We have therefore undertaken the fight against the atheist movement.
We were convinced that the people need and require this faith. This is a secular movement. We have therefore undertaken the fight against the atheistic movement. Sounds pretty secular to me.
And that not merely with a few theoretical declarations. We have stamped it out. Secular schools can never be tolerated because such schools have no religious instruction, and a general moral instruction without a religious foundation is built on air. Consequently, all character training and religion must be derived from faith. We need believing people.
What was that about, how all of this was secular, Dennis?
Hence today, I believe I am acting in accordance with the will of the Almighty Creator. By defending myself against the Jew, I am fighting for the work of the Lord. And believe me,
so atheistic. Like, I wish I could be as atheistic as Hitler.
On for a very long time. There are nearly endless quotes that you can find of Hitler and other Nazi leaders endorsing Christianity and aggressively attacking atheism and secularism, and they had a strong base to work with. Consensus in 1939, 6 years into the Nazi era, found that 95%.
Hey, we got our resident preacher, Seabass, in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Apparently, my destruction is near, and Seabass is happy about it. Maybe if you super chat, it'll come even faster.
Identified with Christianity, with a further 3.5% saying they believe in God. Only 1.5% identified as a.
Only 1.5%
atheist. Or get this, every belt buckle on the Nazi Army, Navy, and Air Force uniform read, God with us. Say.
Secular, they say. Secular this was.
Don't you think that all of this is a bit strange for a supposed anti-religious regime? Either millions of belt buckles are lying, or Dennis is propagating exactly the type of propaganda that Joseph Goebbels did. What's that? You're fine with people being religious, but you don't want the state to force a specific religion on everyone. Great, you're for secularism. Be you religious or not, there's room for you here. Oh, wait, no you're not. If you're not in favour of specifically Dennis's theocracy, you're literally a Nazi. Getting back to all the evidence I've just presented of Nazi Germany having Christian substrate, let me make clear that I am not saying that Nazi Germany was founded on Christianity.
See, again, you get this grace, this honesty, this genuine desire to unpack this topic. He's not trying to dunk on anybody. He's trying to say, hey, look, I agree that these values can be good. What I don't agree with is your characterization, Dennis Prager, that anybody who is secular is going to bring the downfall of society. Again, my argument is that the more people speak like that, the more of the people that Dennis Prager worries about there are going to be. There you go. Yep, exactly.
Despite Hitler claiming in no uncertain terms that it was. No, unlike Dennis, I won't make such sweeping statements. That would be incredibly irresponsible. Hitler had many frictions with the church, which in part inspired him to create the Protestant Reich Church, which aimed to breathe air into the embers of Christian nationalism. But one thing is for sure. For Dennis to claim that secularism entails genocide while showing clips of Nazi Germany either exposes him as being historically illiterate, or worse, as repulsively manipulative.
Communism! Again, shout out to Indie Film for sponsoring the stream.
Yes,
Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God. I never get used to watching or seeing these types of images. Oh my God.
Communism is responsible alone for about 100 million non-combatants, just civilians.
Just got it, Dan. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming through, brother. I really, really do appreciate you. You have a fantastic time, brother.
Being starved, tortured, shot, beaten, frozen. Communism is a secular doctrine. It was an anti-religious doctrine. The first thing that communist regimes did in almost any country was to kill the clergy. When Lenin came to power and then Stalin, Russian Orthodox priests were murdered in the thousands. Churches were either...
Russian Orthodox. Okay, I heard Russian Orthodox. Let me put these back on. What about Catholics?
Converted into some communist building or just destroyed. That's the first thing that communist regimes have done almost everywhere they took over, was destroy religion. Nobody talks about that. It's as if these 100 million people don't matter. You know, Stalin said...
Kind of like all the people that died in the Crusades and the Inquisition that you just kind of brushed off. You're like, whoa, it was horrible, but I mean, you know, what are you gonna do?
At least it's attributed to Stalin. He said, oh, one death is a tragedy. A million is a statistic. That's the problem. When I tell you 100 million people were murdered by secular regimes, it's just a number. The human mind is not capable of appreciating the staggering amount of suffering and evil 100 million entails. So when you hear next time, oh, religion has killed more people than anything else, it's just not true. It's a lie, actually.
Is it though? Is it though? Is it though?
Secularism has killed more people than anything else.
False.
Through violent imagery, dark ambient music, and somber delivery, Dennis has painted an incredibly disparaging portrait of secularism. His representation of secularism is apocalyptic. Indeed, he's depicted secularism as if it's the ruination of nations, the end of civilization.
If society gets too secular, it ends. It ends.
Where to begin?
Huh?
Let's take this piece by piece.
Yes, communism is responsible alone for about 100 million non-combatants, just civilians, being starved, tortured, shot, beaten, frozen.
It's pretty
and it has everything to do with the fact that they were religious and they just couldn't deal with the fact that they were religious. So they slaughtered them. Right?
Much impossible to disprove the figure of 100 million non-combatants, and nor am I so inclined. The crimes committed by communist regimes were, and still are, absolutely horrific. No, what I want to address here is Dennis's conflation of communism with secularism. He speaks as if they are synonymous.
Communism is a secular doctrine. Communism is a secular doctrine.
That's an important point. I'm going to come back to that, but that's an important point. He keeps conflating semantic obfuscation. He keeps conflating being secular and being communist, as it seems Seabass is also doing. Those are two different words that mean two different things. Zippy said, isn't Maoism based in Taoism? With a heavy influence of deception is the way. I don't know enough about those particular religions to answer that question. Sorry.
As we explored in the first instance,
maybe Seabass could, since he's our resident religious scholar.
Secularism is separation of religious institutions from state institutions, and a public sphere where religion may participate but not dominate. You can have your religious cake, but you are not to make me eat your religious cake.
You can have it. You can have your religious cake, any kind of cake, as many layers as you want. Just don't force me to eat it. That is a secular society. But to Dennis, that's the same thing as communism. Okay?
Simple stuff, right? Apparently not. Dennis treats secularism as if it's communism, which is, to give a simple definition, a theory or system of social organization in which all property is owned by the community and each person contributes and receives according to their ability and needs. Secularism is a single stance, whereas communism is an ideology. To confuse these two is to demonstrate that one knows nothing about either. Dennis makes his ignorance, or to be fair, maybe it's his manipulation, all the more obvious with how he follows up his claim of the 100 million non-combatant deaths of communism being attributable to secularism.
Yep. Communism is a secular doctrine. It was an anti-religious doctrine.
Let's approach this obliquely.
It's not. It may be anti-religious in the sense that it is not pushing for Christianity, but it certainly is dogmatic. And as we've discussed, that's just as bad.
By visiting the World Population Review, they know that a country whose government is devoted to secularism, even if its people favor one religion over another, can be considered a secular country, which is in line with the definitions I've provided. Hence, while the US is a self-described secular state and is often considered to be constitutionally secular, it falls
Seabass, I would pull that up and ask you to elaborate, but I know you won't and can't.
Sure, in actual practice. The United Kingdom, on the other hand, which is not a secular state on paper, nevertheless ranks extremely high on the secular index. Other countries that rank high are China, Sweden, Czech Republic, Belgium, Azerbaijan, Vietnam, Australia, Norway, Denmark, and Japan. Now, here's the question. How many of these top 10 secular countries are communist, huh? 2. 2 of them endorse communism. That's it. So while it's fair to say that communist regimes tend to be secular, it's not fair. Far from it, in fact, it's demonstrably false to say or even heavily suggest that secular countries are communist.
So you are exactly making the direct mistake that Dennis Prager is. That's exactly it. You assume that morality is only contained in a religious context. And that's just not true, as evidenced by the hundreds of years of atheistic people or secular people not doing this.
Now, to be clear, Dennis never explicitly claims that all secular countries are communist. He actually states the opposite. But he does heavily imply throughout that pretty much every secular country is communist, and they're not.
Communism is the opposite of survival of the fittest. Regardless of how fit you are, it doesn't matter because the government decides what you get. Capitalism is survival of the fittest. If you're a better company, you make more money. If you suck, you don't.
To apply Dennis's thought process elsewhere, this is akin to identifying that religious terrorists are almost always anti-secular, and then concluding that religious people shouldn't be tolerated because they're always enact religious terrorism.
That's a good argument. That's a good argument. Listen to that one more time. Flip it around.
Says elsewhere that pretty much every country that secular countries are communist. In fact, it's demonstrably false to say or even heavily suggest that secular countries are communist. Now, to be clear, Dennis never explicitly claims that all secular countries are communist. He actually states the opposite. But he does heavily imply throughout that pretty much every secular country is communist, and they're not. To apply Dennis's thought process elsewhere, this is akin to identifying that religious terrorists are almost always anti-secular.
Religious terrorists are almost always anti-secular.
and then concluding that religious people shouldn't be tolerated because they're always enact religious terrorism.
So the only religious terrorists that we have are religious. By Dennis's logic, therefore, we need to eradicate religion.
What? Stupid.
The first thing that communist regimes did in almost any country was to kill the clergy. When Lenin came to power and then Stalin, Russian Orthodox priests were murdered in the thousands.
As were everyone else who could potentially challenge their power.
Yep.
Stalin killed just about everyone. He was a monster. He killed political dissidents and activists, Ukrainians, Poles, Bolsh, Jews, Chechens, wealthy peasants, and Soviet citizens accused of counter-revolutionary crimes. He was a monster, but to attribute his depravity to secularism is as ill-informed, irresponsible, and appalling as attributing the Rwandan genocide to Christianity.
The human mind is not capable of appreciating the
hateful misinformation.
Where? I know we got a bunch of Christians here. Where are the arguments? Where are the arguments that that this guy's wrong or that I'm wrong? You know, I mean, I'm willing. I'm always willing to be wrong about stuff, but like, we got a lot of Christians in here, and you're kind of just talking some bullshit. But in the meantime, we got Just Talk About It in the building. What is good? What is good? In Alaska, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Glad to see you. Just dropped the link to her channel. Please, please, please go check her out. Happy birthday. Glad you are having a good time.
Bigoted people like Dennis will spew out of their mouths while genuinely thinking that they're the good guy.
Seabass with a rare gem here. Religion is the opium of the people. Correct. The opium of the masses was the quote. Absolutely right. Do you understand what is meant by this? Because opium, despite feeling very good, was very bad for society. The beautiful Bible.
Throughout Dennis's long tirade.
So, Jess is saying she's late. So basically, all we're doing is Dennis Prager from Prager U, very conservative guy, big name, and has a lot of reach. He has this master program similar to, you know, like any course that you would buy. And as a conservative, he's pretty much saying that all of the problems around the world are due to secular people. Secular just meaning non-religious, and he's just doing a very bad job at making that argument, as Rationality Rules here is helping us show.
Tirade against not forcing others to live according to his religious will. That is his...
Hey, I don't care where it came from, but it's true.
His tirade against secularism. He's praised the Bible as if it's a literal gift from God. All the depravity he's depicted, all of the genocides of the 20th century are, according to Dennis, due to the death of the Bible.
I'm here to convince you that the consequences of the death of the God of the Bible, the Judeo-Christian God, has been a calamity for civilization.
And we're almost at the end of the second chapter of this this whole thing, and this was the first claim: the death of the Judeo-Christian God will what? Will come on? The death of the Judeo-Christian God has been a calamity. Whereas I argue the death of the valuing or the reverence for Judeo-Christian values has been a calamity. Just exactly. Terrible arguments. Some of the worst people claim to be Christian, which it brings up, I think what Zippy said before about how a lot of people claim to be Christian and just like say it, but don't actually do anything that would constitute, you know, Christianity. Yes, I agree with somebody. Like, I'm sure Stalin said, water is, I'm thirsty. I would like water. When I'm thirsty, I like water too. Again, you are making the exact same mistake. You are making the exact same mistake. You think that because somebody was bad, that everything that they did was due to the same thing. Or at least in this case, the fact that he was an atheist and was a bad person, that all of that bad person stuff was due to his atheism. And that's just wrong. It's just wrong.
And for people individually.
Given this, I think we ought...
Seabass, I mean, there needs to be an award for you having meat and no freedoms on the same team here.
to take a look at the Bible, don't you? If the absence of the Bible leads to genocide, then it stands to reason that the Bible, and especially God, would never endorse genocide, right? But it does. The God of the Old Testament is a monster. He commands and endorses genocide on numerous occasions. Unlike Dennis, however, I'm not going to just state this and move on, trusting that your bias will do the rest. Nope, I'm going to give you some examples. Let's start with Deuteronomy 7. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess, and drives out before you many nations, 7 kingdoms larger and stronger than you, and when the Lord your God has delivered them over to you, and you have defeated them, then you must destroy them totally.
Sounds pretty peaceful to me.
Make no treaty with them, and show them no mercy. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons. Isn't that nice? Daughters are possessions. Or take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods, and the Lord's anger will burn against you and will...
That's so loving. What a loving God. The Lord's anger will burn against you, and you will quickly just... Oh, man. I don't understand how people don't understand how much love is here.
Will quickly destroy you. This is what you are to do to them. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, cut down their Asherah poles, and burn their idols in the fire. For you are the holy people of the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be...
If you believe that, you are dumb.
His people, his treasured possession. Indeed, it seems that for all loving God, it wasn't enough to defeat the opposition. No, he demanded utter destruction. You might be thinking that that young orphan girl who's now alone in the world needs your help, but God is certain that you must not invite her into your home. Anyhow, here's another instance of biblical genocide for you. They devoted the city to the Lord and...
This is from Jericho, chapter 6, verse 21.
...destroyed with the sword every living thing in it. Men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys.
They devoted this and destroyed it with the sword. Every living thing in it. How is this this guidance for life? What are we even talking about?
They destroyed everything on...
Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard that verse before.
God's command, huh?
I'll know,
including the women, children, and even domestic animals. Damn. Tell us again, Dennis, of how wonderful the world of the Bible was. All right, last one for now. Samuel said to Saul,
in 1 Samuel chapter 15,
I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. So listen now to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt.
So it's funny how we have 2 raging Catholics here who just like can't even engage with a conversation because they just got preaching just coming out of their mouth. And the only person who's even heard of that verse, it's not one of them.
Now go, attack the Amalekites.
We're in 1 Samuel chapter 15.
And totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them.
So
Put
nice.
to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys.
This is so... I get exactly what Dennis Prager was saying. When you read this stuff, when you actually see the verses in front of you, when you actually look at that, and you read that, well, it's like, man, I've been wrong all these years. God really is so nice.
I mean, for crying out loud, what the hell did the sheep do wrong? And I could go on and on and on. God even drowns pretty much everyone in Noah's Ark, doesn't he? The Bible is saturated with genocide, with an apparently loving God frequently commanding and endorsing atrocities of pure nightmare fuel. Indeed, properly read, the Bible is the most potent force for atheism ever conceived. So when Dennis claims that genocides are due to the death of the Bible, we must assume one of 3 things. 1, that he hasn't actually read the Bible and is thus grossly ill-informed. 2, that his apologetic acrobatics are off the damn chart, allowing him to interpret any verse in any way that he likes. Or 3, he's treating his flock like mushrooms, keeping them in the dark and feeding them shit.
So just as it's only nice after Jesus came. Jesus was loved. Jesus was nice. He loved sinners. Okay, but like, there's a lot more to that. So there's a lot more to that story. So why not just treat Jesus the same way we would treat Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Bertrand Russell, somebody who, through the course of their life, did and said a lot of amazing things that we really want to emulate. Explain to me why it needs to go any further than that. No freedoms. Can I put this up? Is the answer like legit? Like something I'm just going to put it up there and then we'll see what happens.
As Bertrand Russell put it, atheism is what happens when you read the Bible. Christianity is what happens when someone else reads it for you.
What a bar! Atheism is what happens when you read the Bible. Christianity is what happens when somebody else reads it for you. 100%. 100% true.
And yes, that also applies to Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, and all the rest.
I'm just here to sell you on the certitude that it's been a calamity that God and the Bible have died as operative elements in Western civilization.
And
see, I agree with that part. God and the Bible have died as elements that we need to care about in this society. The values, however, can be separated from God in the Bible.
I'm just here to debunk Dennis's very dangerous nonsense.
Beautiful. All right, last chapter for this one. Freedom or scum. And then we got one more video.
Well then, that's us done with Dennis blaming the atrocities of the 20th century on pretty much exclusively secularism. Well, no, not really. This is a repeated theme throughout all of his talking points. But we are done with tackling this claim directly. We are not, however, anywhere close to done overall. For instance, we yet to hear Dennis complain about women having consensual sex like men.
Girls were told by the feminists when I was in college, oh, hey, you could have sex just like the guys do.
We're also yet to see Dennis ramble on about how without the Bible, there's pretty much no wisdom whatsoever.
No Bible, pretty much no wisdom. That's the way it works.
And
is it though?
Of course, we're yet to hear Dennis claim that without a God who commands genocide, we won't know what's right and wrong.
If there is no God who says do not steal or do not murder, stealing and murder are not wrong.
See, again, this is that weird thinking. Like, bro, I don't believe in God, and also I don't want to pay or murder or steal from you. So what's wrong with you that you need some man in the sky to tell you not to do those things? You really you would really do those things? Were you not being watched? Doesn't that make you the degenerate, not me? So actually, let's go. All right, final chapter. Let's do it.
Why, hello, my fellow apes. I hope you are well. Welcome back to our series tackling Dennis Prager's Master's PhD Professor program, whose thesis is, in Dennis's words,
if society gets too secular, it ends. That's right, it ends.
Yeah. The kill entire nations part. That's the problem.
In the first installment, we introduced Dennis, the thesis of his master's program, defined key terms, and emphasized some of his rhetoric.
Yes, I stole the thumbnail, okay? It's a good thumbnail, and I don't know how to do that. Thank you, Rationality Rules. Please don't copyright claim this. I'm adding free, fair use.
He ensured us that he has no axe to grind, only to immediately follow this up by telling us that he has an axe to grind.
I have no axe to grind here. My axe to grind is what is true.
Oh, hold up. No, I get it now. If someone is in possession of the truth, then they don't actually have an axe to grind. They're completely neutral and objective, or they have a completely different type of axe to grind.
I don't think that's true. Freedom says no one listens to the Bible, except the family that beat their child to death because they were being bad. Yep. I mean, you have your obviously you have people who follow this stuff. Jess, Jess says that she's read it multiple times. I have no reason to believe that she hasn't. Says, why didn't boys have to follow the sex rules? Why are they only focusing on those rules on women? Then they try to blame feminism because that was always always in the control of women, and then women gave up that control. Women used to demand things from men in order to give up sex. And then they're just like, okay, you know what, guys, you don't need to do that anymore. You can just run train and dip out. I mean, they're not going to like it, but they're empowered. You really haven't heard this argumentation before? You're in the space. I mean, women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of relationships. So boys did follow the rules of sex. If you can get it, go on get it. unless you're talking about specifically the Bible, in which case I go back to what No Freedom said. Nobody listens to the Bible.
Got it. So, in other words, absolutely everyone is unarmed.
I have no axe to grind here.
In the second installment, we were unexpectedly caught off guard by the Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
And we were especially caught off guard when Dennis dismissed the Spanish Inquisition and the Crusades as if they are pretty much nothing.
That's not exactly what we call genocide.
Then we acknowledged Dennis's claim that the greatest genocides in the 20th century were committed in the 20th century.
The greatest genocides of the 20th century occurred in the 20th century.
Okay, he did put the ellipses there. That would I was like, did I miss that? Did I really miss that?
Were committed in the 20th century.
The greatest genocides of the 20th century occurred in the 20th century.
And then, finally, we addressed his claim that these atrocities were caused specifically by secularism. You know, the principle of separation of religious institutions from state institutions.
And this is...
Yeah, it just makes a good point that, and again, I don't want to, if we're going to talk about, the old days, then we're just going to talk about people in general. If we're going to talk about society now, then we're going to talk about men versus women because that is more relevant. So back in the day, like, to be honest, the whores in the whorehouses also weren't following the rules. But that's the point, is that forever, it's always been about you take the parts you like and you throw away the parts that that doesn't apply to me, or, oh, that's wrong, or, oh, that's whatever. Well, then you are playing God. And that's fine. Except in your own mind. Because you're not supposed to play God. You're supposed to follow God. You're supposed to read that Bible as if it was directly inspired by God and follow what it says. So for you to decide that, like, oh, God said this, but, F it, I don't really care. Then you're not really a Christian. You're just a person who likes some of the stuff that's in the Bible. And I got to tell you something. That's most Christians. Exactly, Jess. Exactly.
It's all a function of the secular
But you still do it.
world in which we live.
Today, though, we're going to tackle Dennis's bread and butter, his insistence that without the God of the Bible...
I 100% believe this, and this is exactly the point. This is exactly the point. Do any of you want to be Seabass? That's what real Christianity is. Do you believe the world is 6,000 years old and flat? Do you believe that somehow light appeared before stars? Do you want to be that person? You can just admit that there's a lot in Judeo-Christian values that are great, that you want to propagate in society, that you believe in something bigger than yourself. All of this stuff without having to use the word Christianity, God, or the Bible. Change my mind.
Minus Islam.
The God of the Bible, the Judeo-Christian God.
There is no objective morality.
My point is that if there is no God who says do not steal or do not murder, stealing and murder are not wrong.
We'll soon change your mind about that.
Facts, Seabass. I mean, that's what religion is. It's not about how you feel. It's not about what you want. It's about what God wants. But y'all don't give a shit about what God wants. Again, we all agree that there's good values on how to live life in the Bible. That's besides the point. There's also good ways to live in, Captain Planet. So are some of you too young for Captain Planet? Oh, let's do it real quick. Just for Captain Planet. Oh, come on. Let's just see a little clip here. Planetist? Why not? Why not? Isn't he espousing ideas that are good for society? You must not have any morality if you're not a Captain Planetist. Only Captain Planet is the truth. Do you understand how ridiculous your ideology is when you just take it one click to the left? means secularism.
As has been demonstrated in prior episodes, Dennis consistently conflates and confuses secularism with all other isms, or indeed non-isms, that he believes are bad, such as science. Yes.
No Freedoms is in a mood today. I'm digging this mood. Wonder if I can make a good make a book and one day have billions of people follow it. I will make cheesecake as God. There you go, man. That exactly. I'd rather be in hell with all the creepy priests touching. In addition, I have that part's no fun. The Earth is going to be destroyed anyway. Where I care about the planet, Captain Planet. If the Earth is going to be destroyed anyway, why do you care about the planet? Maybe because you live here.
Science.
Now it's secular religion. Feminism, science, Marxism, socialism, communism, environmentalism. These are isms.
These are isms. These are other isms than theism. His argument is that his ism is the only ism. My argument is that all of the isms should only ever be taken so far.
They are like a religious doctrine.
This alone
Facts. They are like a religious doctrine.
Exposes that Dennis either hasn't taken the time to possess even a rudimentary understanding of secularism, or indeed that he understands it just fine, but is willfully deceiving his audience.
That's not exactly
a good look in either case.
See, and that's why I wanted to show you guys this, because this is the exact dichotomy that I find myself directly between. Because I agree with everything about the isms that Dennis Prager just said. Now, whether you want to determine, oh well, you need to look in deeper and environmentalism, feminism, all of these things have absolutely led to the downfall of our society.
Not surprisingly, then, he does precisely the same with morality. Moral elements he likes are God-given, whereas moral elements he doesn't like are evil, secular, college establishment, leftist, and what have you. Basically a load of buzzwords. I'll give you a quick example before we move into the thick of it. Here's Dennis claiming that human worth is dependent on the existence of specifically his God.
There's an irony about secular humanism.
See, Mass, I love you. I love how we're doing this whole thing and it's just like, no, he's not religious enough.
It doesn't do much to value the human. The Judeo-Christian world gave us the biblical notion that we are created in God's image. That means every single person is of infinite preciousness.
Every single person is of infinite preciousness. Why do you need a God to believe that?
The human being is infinitely precious. This is dying in the post-Christian world in which we live.
Notice.
It's dying in the post-Christian world that we live because post-Christianity, no value hierarchy has been created. Not because of the lack of Christianity. I mean, come on.
First of all, the irony of Dennis claiming that secularism doesn't value the human, all while showing pictures of humans protesting to encourage the preservation of the one and only planet we humans have.
I mean, environmentalism is, a joke, but he is right about that.
Is dying in the post-Christian world in which we live.
You see, caring for the human is, to Dennis, upholding traditions that are extremely anti-human, anti-egalitarian. Opposing equality between the sexes, promoting intolerance and hate towards anyone who doesn't fit very narrow dimensions, and stifling scientific advancements that would benefit all. To run with the example that Dennis depicted, climate change activism is about ensuring that the generations of humans that follow us actually have a world worth inheriting. And, of course, it has nothing to do with secularism.
And again, we can have the arguments about whether there are, the powers that be pulling strings, making this the next Rona. But the idea of the people marching in those streets, they do not believe that it's a conspiracy. They do believe that we need to do something about this, that, and the other. And then it doesn't matter that China and India are just screwing up the environment. That if you turn your air conditioning to 78 in the summer for 3 hours a day, oh, it's going to save everything. That's a different conversation. The argument that Dennis tried to make was that those are bad people. They may be, but their message and their intention is not. Just like Dennis, yours may not be a bad intention. You're just wrong.
There are people who are in favor of a secular state that couldn't care less for climate change, and there are people who are in favor of a theocratic state who care a great deal for climate change, considering it our duty, no less, to take care of the gift of this planet, just as Adam was instructed to take care of the animals in the Garden of Eden. This is also true of sexual, racial, and gender movements. The movements that Dennis consistently treats as if...
What the fudgesicle is this? If you're being attacked... Look how cute this motherfucker is. Not 90 cents? 90 cents? 10 cents? Come on. If you're being attacked by 200-mile-per-hour winds and it carries you away, does it matter what you believe? No, it doesn't. But how do you get there from the wind? Like, what is what I believe have to do with God being the wind? This is a complete breakdown in logic. What does being attacked by wind have to do with whether or not that wind is God or not? What are you talking about?
If they're detrimental to valuing humans, that they're corrosive to society. These movements are egalitarian to the core. Valuing humans, all humans, are their substrate. Their baseline is that it doesn't matter what vagina you fall out of. No matter your sex, gender, or the melanin in your skin, you are valued. You deserve an equal opportunity. Secondly, let's take a look at Dennis's logic. He concludes from the proposition.
Exactly. A natural event. So that would be contained within the natural laws of the universe.
Are created in God's image.
That we therefore have infinite preciousness.
That means every single person is of infinite preciousness. The human being is infinitely precious.
Dennis doesn't explain how he gets to this conclusion.
So what if aliens came down and killed more people than had ever been killed by wind? Do the aliens now become God? Do you see the flaw in your logic? You are just saying things. It doesn't make any sense.
Nor how he's defining preciousness. I know, what a shock. So we'll move on. Springboarding from the notion that secularists don't value humans, and more specifically that we don't think we're created in God's image, Dennis concludes that we are no more valuable than a pebble or an animal. Yes, of course, humans are animals, and there are plenty of people who are in favor of a secular state who also believe that we are created in the image of God. Dennis has made this quite a mess, but we've got to forego these inconsistencies to meet him where he's at.
So your only metric for power is how many people you've killed. You don't understand logic, friend.
And where he's at is, well...
PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Oh, I'm interested to see where this goes. Because, knowing that I watched the first two and knew that I wanted to cover this episode. I was waiting for this episode to come out. And I was just like, let's do it. I haven't even watched it. I'm very interested to see where we're going to go with this. Interested to see where we're going to go with this. Because PETA has been just a lol cow of an organization for at least a decade now. But as an atheistic liberal, I don't know where Rationality Rules is going to come down. Excuse me. Is going to come down on this. There was just this whole drama with Alex O'Connor. We had done something with him, but another, the English atheist dude that we were talking to, and he maybe a year and a half ago or whatever came out as like, I'm going vegan, I'm doing this, I'm going to be the vegan guy, and da da da. And then he was having digestive issues, and he said he wasn't doing it anymore, and people flipped out. So I would imagine that a lot of those same people are going to be in Rationality Rules audience. So let's see, we're talking about PETA,
biggest animal rights group in America. Raises many millions of dollars a year. There is a program they have for years called Holocaust on Your Plate. Look it up. And they contend that the barbecuing of chickens in America is the moral equivalent of the cremating of Jews in the Holocaust. The equivalent.
Right. Let's take a moment to really appreciate just how utterly ill-informed and frankly moronic this segment from Dennis's master's program is.
Okay, but let's also determine that people legitimately, absolutely do believe that.
Seriously, I'm a vegetarian, and the vast majority of my calories come from vegan products.
Of course you are!
And so I personally agree that there is a debate to be had about speciesism, and especially factory farming.
I do as well. Okay, so we're on the same page so far, but PETA has been shown over and over and over and over and over again to not just be an advocacy group for animal rights, but an actual, I mean, I think, I might be pulling this out of my ass. I wish Harley was here to fact check, but I'm pretty sure they've been labeled a domestic terrorist group. And if not, it's only because of the side of the political aisle they're on.
But guess what? The vast majority of secularists don't share my view. And to anyone who understands what secularism is, so evidently not Dennis, this isn't surprising, since my views on animal welfare are not derived from the view that one shouldn't force others to live according to one's religious beliefs. Yeah, Peter can hardly be seen as a representative of the mainstream secular view of animal welfare, and to present their campaign as somehow representative of the wider secular population is significantly more absurd. Yes, more absurd than presenting the Westboro Baptist Church's campaign of picketing funerals as mainstream Christianity.
Quick aside, I just got caught up in, exactly what they're showing right now. This documentary was put up in pieces on TikTok. Yes, I've been sucked into the TikTok algorithm, but very interesting to watch. Definitely go check out Louis Theroux with the Westboro Baptist Church. And this was from before when Megan Phelps Roper, who now does a podcast with J.K. Rowling, when she was still in the church, and she's still very much a part of this documentary.
If you had just a little knowledge of the Bible, you would know that what you just said is stupidity.
We'd all recognize that it would be wrong to equate the average Christian with Fred Phelps, and yet at least Christianity and the campaigns of the Westboro Baptist Church share the same substrate, namely the Bible.
You've got the duty to know the Bible as well as I do.
Hence,
do you though?
Once again, Dennis has exposed himself as abysmally ill-informed or manipulative.
Moving on to a sweet suggestion.
I've recently invested all I have to turn Rationality Rules from a one-man band into a team. And so
I am going to let this play because I just don't like begging. I don't like begging you guys. But again, as somebody who has over 300,000 subscribers, still having to do this. Just
a company that deals in investments invest in us in the form of a sponsorship is greatly appreciated. In an ideal scenario, even with the harsh realities of the economy, we'd all have money, and we'd be making our money work for us, freeing us so that we can focus our time on self-actualizing pursuits. But in 2023, that's easier said than done. Most ways of passively growing your money, like investing in the stock market, have been suffering this year. In fact, the Wall Street Journal reports the average portfolio of stocks and bonds that millions rely on lost a shocking 25% last year after inflation. But here's where Masterworks presents a fascinating opportunity.
So I just want to give him a chance to, say that we all, need a little something here and there, 99 cents. That's all it is for a treat for Morty.
Works. Then be sure to click my link below.
All right.
I want a God who says be good.
Well, then I don't think Yahweh is the right God for you, homie.
You know the famous line from the Bible, love your neighbor as yourself? That's not the line. The line is, love your neighbor as yourself, I am God. If God doesn't say love your neighbor as yourself, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Now you know how I feel, no freedoms. Now you know how I feel. What the fuck? Doesn't surprise me.
It's just a sweet suggestion.
Is it, though? Is it nothing more than a sweet suggestion, a vapid opinion to love your neighbor if God doesn't command it? There is a lot that can be said here. For instance, and as I'll expand upon in the next episode, we need to establish what it means to say that something is good simply because God says it's good. One worry is that if something is morally decent only if God says so, then it follows that if God commands genocide, as he did, see our last episode, then genocide would be morally right. In fact, on occasion, it would be a moral imperative. Hence, divine objective morality is nothing more than might makes right. And that's not morality, is it? But again,
that, sir, is exactly what we're talking about when we say survival of the fittest.
Address this in full next time. For now, let's explore what sociology and psychology has to say. Dennis won't, of course, much care for what experts have to say.
Believe me, if you went to college, you heard this.
But since most of us, pro-secular or anti-secular alike, do actually care what experts who have studied these nuanced and complex topics over a lifetime think, let's continue. What do social and evolutionary psychologists make of the claim that without God commanding us to love our neighbor, this is just a sweet suggestion?
If God
what do you say? You don't have to know how I feel. Maybe once you reach 50, are you talking to me? Or are you talking to Seabass?
God doesn't say love your neighbor as yourself, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Do that.
Oh no!
Like Dennis,
so
think that without God, all moral claims are mere opinion, without foundation. No, they don't. As psychology professor Aaron Arenzian explains in his book Big Gods, the building blocks of morality, such as intuitions, instincts, and emotions associated with kinship, reciprocity, and dominance hierarchies, predate religion, which gives us a pretty big hint that moral precepts are not arbitrary sweet suggestions. There's something more going on. Or as Christopher Hitchens put it, human decency is not derived from religion, it precedes it.
Yup.
As an example,
Human decency. Oh, come on. Really?
of what we could consider moral decency is not derived from religion, it precedes it.
Human decency is not derived from religion, it precedes it. You have to have human decency in order for religion to develop. You have to have human decency in order for religion to develop in the first place. Who is developing the religion? Who is spreading the message? Who cares enough about the message to even spread it without human decency?
As an example of what we could consider moral software, Ara looks at studies by Kylie Hamlin, Karen Wynn, and Paul Bloom, who have observed that moral-like judgments can be seen even in pre-verbal babies. By 6 months of age, they show a preference for an individual who helps and an aversion to an individual who obstructs someone else's goal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, come on.
Hamlin and her colleagues further show the early precursor to another moral tendency that keeps the social order, punishing antisocial behavior. 8-month-old babies not only prefer pro-social individuals, but they also prefer individuals who act harshly towards an antisocial individual.
What is going on with my computer? Holy shit. Nothing is opening. There we go. Okay. Got one. I need this more than I need Discord right now.
Another example of loving thy neighbour not being predicated on an unembodied mind's words is highlighted by Dr. Claire White in her book, An Introduction to the Cognitive Science of Religion. The philosopher Peter Singer points out a similarity in religious and non-religious dogma and philosophical writings, such as the notion of impartiality. This principle is found in many diverse religious and philosophical systems of morality. From the Golden Rule in Christianity, that is, do unto others as you would have done unto you, to the teachings of the renowned Chinese philosopher Confucius, and the political philosopher John Rawls' landmark theory of justice. Claire concludes that research converts on the idea that fully developed morality is ultimately a synthesis of the biological, cognitive, and cultural. Similar results have been found in studies about other primates. We humans are not unique. As the primatologist Franz de Waal has concluded, direct altruism, that is, altruism in response to another's pain, need, or distress, is phylogenetically ancient, probably as old as mammals and birds. But perhaps the most conclusive fact of all is that there are many common agreements between all societies, let alone religions, on justice. For instance, there is wide consensus on issues such as killing and torturing being morally wrong. But what's with this overlap? Where's it come from?
Hey, Misanthropic is back. So we're at 50-50. I'm going to leave it up and see if somebody else comes in, because we ain't leaving that at 50-50. The fact that you think that all of this is convincing is sad. There you go. That is science. That is science right there. It's in his name. He knows.
Well, standing from our lofty, privileged 21st century standpoint, with all the information available to us, this...
Can somebody just, take a screenshot of that? Come on.
Really isn't a difficult question to answer. As Charles Darwin wrote in The Descent of Man, when two tribes of primeval man living in the same country come into competition, if the one tribe included a great number of courageous, sympathetic, and faithful members who were always ready to warn each other of danger, to aid and defend each other, which is to say they love their neighbor, this tribe would succeed better and conquer the other.
So again, we're now going to Charles Darwin, the father of the concept. He didn't prove it, but he introduced the concept of evolution by natural selection, which we now know is a fact that occurred. We don't know how life began. We don't know where conscious came from. But once it was there, there is no question that how we got from there to here is evolution. Anyway, he's just making the point that way before there was any type of idea, any concept of what religion could even be, you have two tribes living in the same country. In competition, the one tribe included a great number of courageous, sympathetic, and faithful members who are ready. And notice the word faithful. Faithful in what? Not in a dogma. Faithful in each other. Faithful in their way of life. Who are always ready to warn each other of danger, to aid and defend each other. This tribe would succeed better to conquer the other. Where's God? Where is God? Oh, we got the hat trick! We got Seabass, No Freedoms, and Wesley all in the same stream. Oh, man, I feel like it's my birthday. He says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of a man, what is the proverb that ye have in the land of Israel? Saying, the days are prolonged, and every vision faileth. For there shall be no more any vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. But say unto them, the days are at hand, the effect of every vision, for there shall be no more vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. Jesus! How'd I do, Wesley? How'd I do? Is that the what you meant when you were saying all this? Religion was inevitable, 100%. Religion was cheers. Yeah, religion was inevitable, and religion was important. Religion was necessary for. Well, thank you, brother. Absolutely. Religion before we had the scientific method. Actually, wait. Can we just stop right now? Again, can I get you in the? Oh wait, no. There we go. Just got to screenshot that for later. I don't think Wesley has ever said anything nice to me, so I really do appreciate that, brother. But yes, religion was inevitable. Religion was always the way to explain the world around us. We didn't have the scientific method for all of human history. So we would just think about things. That's what philosophy was. And then philosophy and religion kind of intermingled. But then we had the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. And people figured out, like, all of the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 2 hours. And then it was no longer needed.
Selfish and contentious people will not cohere, and without coherence, nothing can be effected. A tribe rich in the above qualities would spread and be victorious over the other tribe.
Where's God in that?
Indeed, even a basic understanding of evolution by natural selection provides a comprehensive explanation for our moral intuitions, and by extension, our ethical frameworks. In fact, even
Seabass, we already did this one. Isaac Newton also drank water. Therefore, nothing. Everyone was a Christian in the time of Isaac Newton because it was people like Isaac Newton who gave us the information to allow us to realize that Christianity is bullshit.
Before Darwin, there were some seriously impressive apes that still figured this out, such as my boy, Percy Bysshe Shelley, in 1814, 45 years.
Ended the poll at 60%. No. And I gotta agree with you guys.
Before Darwin, it is manifest that if the eye...
Facts. Super facts. Super facts.
They could not see, nor the stomach digest, the human frame would not preserve its present mode of existence. It is equally certain, however, that the elements of its composition, if they did not exist in one form, must exist in another.
So it says, it is manifest that if the eye could not see, nor the stomach digest, the human frame would not preserve its present mode of existence. It is equally certain, however, that the elements of its composition, if they did not exist in one form, must exist in another. It is manifest that I cannot see that. Okay, I don't really know what that means. I'm gonna hope he helps us here.
And that the combination which they would form must, so long as they endured, derive support for their peculiar mode of being from their fitness of the circumstances of their situation. Hence, it's not surprising that social species exhibit frameworks that contain socially conducive precepts, such as loving one's neighbor.
Let's dive into this. So first, Seabass says Isaac Newton was a Christian, which I referenced. I addressed this point about an hour and a half ago. But fair enough. I don't think he was here, and Christians. They're going to Christian. And then he said that Isaac Newton was smarter than me. And I was like, yeah, I mean, discovered gravity. Like, the only thing I discovered was that I like drugs. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. And then MA here brings up a good point. Sure you want to make that argument? Because I think even sitting here right now, I know more about gravity than Isaac Newton could have ever imagined. What did Isaac Newton know about physics? Certainly not gravity until he was like, hey, wait a minute, an apple. Wait, it's going to fall. Oh, I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying that's the level of intelligence. It's a force that brings stuff towards bigger stuff. Exactly. An atheist is only interested in his own opinion and facts. Yeah, because Christians are. It's. I mean, like, just take the everything that you say and flip it around and see if it would even like. Is it something that I would say? It's something that I would think. Because, I mean, you say a lot of nasty shit that I would never say to another human being, because despite the fact that you are, you know, this holy person, you're kind of an asshole sometimes. And I'm an asshole too, but I'm just not as much of an asshole, and I don't even need God. But I digress. Exactly. Like, I know how to use a smartphone. Does he know how to use a smartphone? I know how to set up a stream. Does he know how to set up a stream? I know how to train dogs. Does he know how to train dogs? Just saying. He didn't have Google. Any Film says, do you think there was a historical person, a leader or teacher named Jesus or something similar referred to as Christ? Absolutely. The fact that there was one guy that all of this shit is about is possible. Not very likely. Again, the irony. What do you believe? What you were told. MA says, even from a Christian or Jewish perspective, intelligence is not a requisite for faith, nor does intellect benefit faith in any direct way.
Or moral intuition is no more arbitrary.
Let's back this up.
Of their situation. Hence,
I want to figure out. Let's go back to the actual.
It is equally certain, however, that the elements of its composition, if they did not exist in one form, must exist in another, and that the combination which they would form must, so long as they endured, derive support for their peculiar mode of being from their fitness of the circumstances.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have no idea what this means. Hopefully he's going to explain it.
Of their situation. Hence, it's not surprising that social...
Whose opinion are you interested in, friend? Because I'm interested in all of your opinions. I'm interested in Dennis Prager's opinions. I'm interested in Stephen Woodford's opinions. Whose opinions are you interested in, sir? Oops!
Social species exhibit moral frameworks that contain socially conducive precepts, such as loving one's neighbor. Our moral intuition is no more arbitrary than is the light sensitivity of our pupils. As a social species...
Oh my God. I wish I was still doing shorts. Seabass says, learn to read, fool. The fool is only interested in his own opinion. I only believe in God's word. The irony. You believe what you were told. I only believe in God's word. You believe what you're told. Learn to read, fool. I only believe God's word.
Stupid. Become ready bait with social software. So when Dennis says,
yeah, I do need to hear,
such as surprise, peculiar mode of being from their fitness of the circumstances of their situation. Hence, it's not surprising that social species exhibit moral frameworks that contain socially conducive precepts, such as loving one's neighbor.
Right. It makes complete, perfect sense that humans and other animals act in the way that Christians would want to call Christian or moral according to God's word, but that animals, humans included, already do that.
Our moral intuition is no more arbitrary than is the light sensitivity of our pupils. As a social species, we come ready bait with social software. So when Dennis says,
if God doesn't say love your neighbor as yourself, It doesn't mean a damn thing. It's just a sweet suggestion.
Exactly, brother. You said, what did you say? You believe what you are told. God's word is not my opinion. Therefore, you believe what you are told. You fucking moron.
He's simply wrong. Loving your neighbor isn't an arbitrary, whimsical, sweet suggestion predicated on thin air. To the contrary, it's hardwired into us, or at least most of us. What's more, as an explanation, evolution by natural selection is compatible with theism. It can be argued that God chose to imbue in us our moral apparatus through the process of evolution by natural selection. Yes, this doctrine comes with serious baggage, but at least it doesn't necessitate being scientifically illiterate. Now, I hear a few objections in the audience. Perhaps by a sweet suggestion, Dennis is expressing that without a God saying we must love our neighbors, it's not a universal objective fact that we should love our neighbors. Don't worry, I'm going to get to this. The point.
All right, so let's address my opinions come from someone else. Well, many other people. Your opinions come from one source. My sources include your sources.
Stupid.
Point here, however, is to debunk the notion that without God prescribing moral rules, all rules don't mean a damn thing.
It doesn't mean a damn thing.
They do mean a damn thing.
Yup.
In essence, Dennis and his ilk often paint a black and white fallacy, where on the one hand we have divine command theory, and on the other, complete arbitrariness.
This is also called the false dichotomy, the black and white fallacy, either or. It's either Christianity or you're a bad person. This is what is pushing people towards hedonism, towards atheism, towards degeneracy, towards trans, towards leftism, towards all of the things that regardless of what we here think about God, we all agree are bad for America. But you don't care. You want to believe what you want to believe, and you only care about your own opinion. You only care about your own opinion. You don't actually care about what's really happening. You don't actually care about reality. You don't actually care about other people. You just care about being right. And it's sad. I agree. And they said, my favorite Christians show their virtue. They do not proselytize poorly on the internet. Very poorly. Very, very, very poorly.
What we've shown here is that this doesn't at all account for the landscape. Pretty much no one thinks that morality is completely and utterly made up without any foundation. And for Dennis to suggest that they do reveals that he either doesn't know what he's talking about or he's being manipulative. Are you seeing a trend here?
All right, a small government. I think we can all come together and appreciate a small government. Although, as a leftist, I don't know, I don't want to call him a leftist, but I don't know where he's going to come out with this one. Hey, we got Indie Film in the building. Thank you so much. Yes, Morty, that is for you. Say thank you to Indie Film. Let's do one at a time. Yeah. All right, you want to try and catch? You know, you're going to fall. Say thank you, Indie Film. Thank you, Indie Film. No, hold up. No freedoms. I don't know if you're trolling when you talk like that, but I would be very upset if I never saw you here again. Just saying. If you gotta go, you know, have a good night, but come back to us, bro. I'm dead serious about wanting you in the Discord. I'm dead serious about wanting to actually be able to explore these issues with you. So have a good night. Hopefully, you know, I see you in the comments tomorrow. Thank you so much. No freedoms. MA says, Christians, at least most of you, are not as bad as the atheism plus tards. Yup. I was, I'm not going to say that. I wasn't close to joining that whole thing where it's like, well, you know, we're atheists, but no. I am an anti-theist. I am an agnostic atheist, anti-theist. But also, I have values. And a lot of those values overlap with the church and the Bible. Do with that information what you will. A small government.
What ensures a smaller government is when people believe that there is a God to whom they are accountable. Because if you're not accountable to God for your behavior, then you will have to be accountable to people for your behavior.
Yeah. It sounds like by that statement, if you're not accountable to God, where you would actually care, then you're accountable to other people. And who would give a shit about other people? Very Christian of you, Dennis.
To the state.
Yes, that's Dennis suggesting that secularism, the separation of religious institutions from state institutions, somehow ensures bigger governments compared to countries that force their religion into all aspects of public and private life through the government.
What ensures a smaller government is when people believe that there is a God.
And he says this with vague reference to recent protests in the United States.
If you really want to defund the police, I've got a method. Have everybody live by the 10 Commandments. Then you can defund the police.
Indeed, according to Dennis, if we could make people live by the 10 Commandments, we wouldn't need a big government. As far as he sees it, the reason secular countries need big governments is
because if you're not accountable to God for your behavior, then you will have to be accountable to people for your behavior, to the state.
There are at least 7 major issues with Dennis's claim that secularism ensures a bigger government. First, you're not just accountable to other people, the state. You're also accountable to you, yourself, your conscience. If you don't live according to your conscience, then you're going to live in hell. When I, for example, don't eat meat, it's not because if I ate meat, I'd be violating my state's rules. No, I'd be violating my conscience.
That's a great example for somebody like me, because there was a decent period of time where I was thinking about going vegan because I don't think that it's wrong to eat meat. I just, factory farming is atrocious. And I mean, like, you can not care, but you can't disagree with that. Like, it's just terrible. And so I was legitimately, around this time, I was, this is when Joe Rogan was still on YouTube. So I was watching a lot of his stuff. And between Steve Rinella of the Meat Eater podcast and show, which I love, and Cameron Haynes, 2 professional hunters, it just gave me a different look. I had the very basic, liberal position. Like, oh my God, you're going to kill. Like, oh, can we get this? I really hope this doesn't copyright claim this. Come on. This will be so good. And I just had the same, the same, I don't get it. You just, indie films think it's still on the screen, bro. What, you think these people just got money flowing out their ears? They're being very generous and helping us out. Yeah, I put a 1 in the chat if you have not seen this movie.
Imagine you're a deer.
I love this part. It's such a good. It's and Marissa Tomei, like, I love it. I love it. 92. Holy mother fudgesicle! I am getting old. Oh, look, it's me. But yeah, that's the opinion I had on hunting. That, like, it was just a bad thing. It was just a bad thing, and there was no. Oh no! Hold on. I think did they claim it? No, please. Your stream. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Your stream may be temporarily blocked. Well, we just saw it on the thing, so hopefully we're good. That's gonna be annoying. That's gonna be really annoying. Anyway, yeah, but that was my position on hunting, and so then learning more about hunting, and still having the opinion that, like, clearly the way that we treat animals, it's not good. I either, because it's not wrong to eat meat, but it's wrong to treat the animals this way. I either have to become a vegetarian or I have to start hunting. Then conversation came up about lab-grown meats, and they were, where they could take DNA from a cow or a pig or whatever, and then grow that into an actual animal, but or actual animal flesh without any brain or sentience or anything like that. Oh man! Oh, I wish I didn't do this. They're definitely gonna claim this. Oh man! All right. Point being, that is a relevant thing. Where were we? So, MA says that's a cogent point. God is half decent stand-in for universally valued ethics. Yeah, I mean, up to a point. Up to a point. I absolutely agree. But then it goes off the rails. MA disagrees with I'm not sure what. There's lots of people that lack such conscience with or without a God. If they didn't care about violating God's dictates, they would also not care about violating secular morals and values. Of course, there's always going to be bad people. But you're saying this as if the introduction of religion, yes, they didn't claim it. The idea is that by saying this, you're acting as if making or being religious automatically makes you a good person, and being secular makes you a bad person. The fact is, there are religious people who do bad things. There's religious people who do good things. There's secular people who do bad things. There's secular people who do good things. It's a false cause, as was brought up earlier. CS says, being Christian doesn't make you a better human. It only saves your soul. Your flesh continues to do what it wants. A Buddhist is more concerned with behavior than a Christian. Okay. That's the Jersey in me. Oh man, she's gonna be, I think this is on Facebook too, but whatever. Well, let's do it. We're bringing up Jersey Girl. Oh man. Actually, wait. Nobody look. I don't want you guys to know my first name, even though a lot of you do. Oh my God. Those of you, all right, hold on. Give me one sec. Those of you who know what this is, you're gonna crack up. This is how I got so good at this this accent. So, long story short, I was basically saying to my Facebook people, like the people I know in real life, who, none of them are here, just like, hey, I don't know if you know, but just putting it out there, PSA, if you care about me or want to be friends with me or anything at all, hey, we got Jesus Drowns Babies in the building. Welcome to the party. Between the name and the comment, Jesus loves little children with a black heart. I'm not really sure how to take that, but I am very glad you are here. Welcome to the party. Just doing a quick aside on how I am so good at Italian broads accents. So this girl responded to me saying that, like, hey, I just, this is what it is. If you care about being friends with me, come to my channel. If you don't, it's all good. This is what we got.
Watch. Oh my God, you can
hear this, right?
Fucking laugh to the fact that my areolas are going to fall to the floor. Jesus Christ, I could go full nutsack.
I went to high school with this chick, and she wasn't the only one that sounded like this.
Reading your shit. Dead ass. And I'm just joking. I'm busting your balls, so please don't take this seriously. You know I'm a ball buster. When have you ever fucking...
She's dead serious about everything.
Ever given me a chance? You have told everybody you can't fucking stand me. You never liked me. Who the fuck are you to tell me that you expect me to give a fuck about your life? You never gave a fuck about my life.
Again, it was never saying you have to give a fuck about my life. It was saying if you give a fuck about my life, show up. If not, well, good.
Rip, bro. You can't even call a rope to jump because off jump you never gave a fuck about my life. So don't play victim. Just take responsibility. No one gives a fuck at the end of the day. I reached out because I really thought like you were in the shits. Like I felt bad. That's fucked up. No one should feel that way. You should never.
You get the point. MA says, not what I meant at all. I do not think religion or secular solutions can tame certain kinds of bad people. Definitely agree. Trey comes in when we play in Jersey Girl. If you're in Discord, you heard that more than once. Welcome to the party. What were we even talking about? If I misunderstood, I apologize. I definitely agree with you there. Again, Seabass, what do you think this means? Christianity is so much more of a proselytizing religion, and Buddhism is more of a philosophy than anything else. There are religious aspects to it, in the sense that there's rituals and doctrines and stuff, but it's not the same thing. You think it's because you're speaking truth? Or maybe it's because you think you know everything about everything. All right, let's back this up. See where we were.
They're not just 7 major issues with Dennis's claim that secularism ensures a bigger government.
Yeah, so that was his claim. Dennis Prager was saying secularism ensures a bigger government, and Stephen here is saying that there were 7 issues with his statement. It was only like 30 seconds, so let's see.
First, you're not just accountable to other people, the state. You're also accountable to you, yourself, your conscience. If you don't live according to your conscience, then you're going to live in hell. When I, for example, don't eat meat, it's not because if I ate meat, I'd be violating my state's rules.
Get up.
No, I'd be violating my conscience. Second, not only did Dennis fail to provide evidence for his claim that belief in God entails a smaller government, but if we take a look at the top countries on the Human Freedom Index, guess what? Secularism isn't the big controlling boogeyman that Dennis depicts. And this isn't a surprise. Secularism is the separation of religious institutions from state institutions. And so while Dennis's anti-secular state would seek to force, ironically via the police force, everyone else to abide by his religious beliefs.
That's a huge point right there. If he's saying secular countries are going to be have smaller governments, then that doesn't make sense, because of course, if you were to have a theocracy, then theocracy has to be enforced by what? A government. So that kind of goes against everything you're saying, right?
Secularism definitionally won't do this. To the contrary, in fact, secularism encourages...
I mean, my channel's blowing the fuck up, so I mean, I'm going a little slump right now, but you know, I'm still growing, so maybe you're just not speaking truth. Oh no,
religious
brother.
freedom. In short,
actually, I do know you're not.
Third, the police are just one branch of what composes the government. There are many other departments, such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. So even if religiosity reduced the need for a police force, and as just discussed, it doesn't, it in no way follows that religiosity entails a smaller government. This is just a non sequitur. Ironically, a religious state is going to need to be bigger, because while a secular state won't, for example, need to allocate resources into indoctrinating children in school, a religiously...
Well... See, now we have an issue with what Rationality Rules is saying. What did he just say? Let's listen to it again, in case you missed it.
Secular state won't, for example, need to allocate resources into indoctrinating children in...
You sure about that? You sure that a secular government is not going to be using resources to indoctrinate children? So there's no children in America right now who believe that they're non-binary or queer or trans because they've been indoctrinated in schools? Come on, bro. We gotta be fair. We gotta be fair.
In school, a religiously imbued state will. Fourth, the 10 Commandments don't nearly account for the societal issues of today. They don't tell us, for instance, how to house and benefit those with disabilities, how precisely to provide healthcare to our neighbours, nor how to create a fair society in which we all have an equal opportunity. You know, they don't inform us on how to value all humans. Fifth, a significant number of theists don't take the 10 Commandments literally. For instance, they happily depict God, heaven, hell, etc.
So we're at Exodus 20:40. Says, thou, oh, I was going to read it. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of the thing that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. I think that means, I wish 2B was here, because I think that means that you're going to hell for sinning. I mean, thou shalt not make unto thee any great... What does graven mean? I don't know what graven means. That's not how you spell that. Great... What? Deeply impressed. Okay. So, any deeply impressed image? Okay, so I guess he's saying if there is an image that you've made that you like, that you think is impressive, the likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or the water underneath the earth. So if you're an artist of any kind, a visual artist of any kind, according to Exodus 20, verse 4, you're going to hell.
As even Dennis has incessantly throughout his UberChad PhD program. Their work on Sunday, don't believe we're obligated to honor parents that are abusive, are fine with killing...
Let's go through them. Let's go through them. We do that.
Fifth, a significant...
Come on!
Etc. As even Dennis has incessantly throughout his UberChad PhD program. Their work on...
Okay, so this is Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 10. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that was in the gates.
Sunday, don't believe.
And then we go to Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the land which they lead, which the Lord,
obligated to honor parents that are abusive, are fine with killing in self-defense, partake in adultery, and have ambition. Oh, and they certainly ain't down with stoning to death those who work on Sunday or cheat on their spouse.
Put a 1 in the chat if you're down to stone people who work on Sundays like a real Christian. Otherwise, you are a sinner and have fallen from grace.
Sixth, and related to the fifth, we have the ever-present issue of interpretation. Weird, ain't it? An all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving God has very clear rules that you must follow. In fact, if you break just one of these rules, he'll eternally forsake you. And yet he's chosen to communicate these crucial rules in a way that's pretty much impossible to accurately comprehend. Just as Dennis somehow interprets the Bible as to not condone slavery, others interpret that loving thy neighbor means having a decent welfare state. Seventh, and final for now, suppose Dennis got his rigid, outdated interpretation solidified. How is he going to force others to live up to his interpretation?
The law. No, I mean, to be fair, I do believe that Dennis is arguing not for a theocracy, but for a cultural renaissance, let's call it. A cultural renaissance in relation to religion, that he wants people on their own accord to pick back up religion. But this ignores the reason why people have fallen away from religion in the first place. He just doesn't have an answer because he's just dogmatically in the position, church good, God good, Bible good, anything else bad. So when things become bad in society, like, oh, well, it must be because there was no God, no Bible, no Jesus, whatever. And obviously, that is retarded.
Have everybody live by the 10 Commandments.
Precisely. He'll need a very big police force, which will increase his big government as it shovels religious propaganda down the throats of children, as has been the case historically with all states in bed with religion.
And again, we do have to bring up that despite the fact that we don't want religious indoctrination, we also don't want any other type of dogmatic indoctrination, which includes gender identity, which includes race realism, or I don't even know what that means. Or you know, all of this critical race applied principles that is based on the college theory, the college course of critical race theory, which is not being taught to elementary school or grade school kids, but the tenants absolutely are. So there can be indoctrination without religion. All you need is dogma. Get rid of dogma, things will get better. That's how it works.
If you want to scratch the surface, to force half the human race to give up.
How come you just say things, but you don't demonstrate anything? Like, how many times do I have to do that to your comments when you just don't say anything? Like, well, you're dumb. Are you 5?
Much of their autonomy, just as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have and still do to females whenever they've got governmental power. Or if you want to ensure that tons of people live unauthentically, just as all 3 of the aforementioned do when they hold the reins, then you're going to need a big state. But to be sure to cover all angles here, it's more likely that when Dennis says,
have everybody live by the 10 Commandments,
he doesn't mean that we force others to live by the 10 Commandments, because in this hypothetical scenario that he's painted, each and every person themselves choose to live by the commandments. In this case, though, all Dennis is saying is that if everyone thought the same and lived by the same rules, then we wouldn't need a big government.
And that has nothing to do with any particular ideology. If everybody was a leftist, if everybody was a Republican, if everybody was this, if everybody was that, then we would all get along because we'd all have the same ideas. The flaw in the logic is that it's your idea that has to be the one that we all agree upon. When you're making truth claims that you can't falsify, you can't prove or falsify. How are you trying? I don't understand. I don't understand. In the 90s, sure. Maybe Y2K. We don't know. Is the world going to end? Maybe this is it. Well, by 2005, how is religion even still a thing? I don't get it.
But again, even this isn't true, since a police force is only one element of what composes a government.
Yep.
Moreover, the observation that if everyone lived by the Ten Commandments, we wouldn't need a big police force isn't exactly insightful, is it? In fact, in the context in which Dennis presents this trivial fact, it's a failure to understand the campaign and concerns of those who protest in the first place. If everyone lived by, say, Hindu scripture, we also wouldn't need a police force. Dennis throws out lofty controversial claims like this all throughout his alternative education, and I've opted to not comment on many of them. I've had to pick and choose my battles here. Still, I thought I'd give this one a response, since the narrative that the zealous opt for smaller governments is among the most ridiculous claims I've ever heard, and yet it's quite popular at the moment.
And this doesn't even make sense, because no, I guess okay. I was going to say something different. Never mind.
Despite all his talk of freedom, Dennis won't be happy until he has his cake and makes you, through governmental oppression, eat it too. Dennis Prager is anti-freedom.
Dennis Prager is anti-freedom. That's a strong statement. But when you lay it out that he wants this theocracy, how do you enforce that without freedom? You can't. A bygone relic.
Because if you're not accountable to God for your behavior,
You're
then you
accountable
will
to
have
other
to be accountable
people.
to people for your behavior, to the state.
For Dennis, being accountable to society spells catastrophe, and he's expressed this multiple times for decades. For instance, he emphasized this even more directly in his series of videos on the Prager U website about the Ten Commandments.
The recipe for a good world is all there in these 10 sublime commandments.
Is it
But there is a catch.
Of course there is. You have to believe in bullshit in order for it to work.
The 10 commandments are predicated on the belief that they were given by an authority higher than any man, any king, or any government. That's why the sentence preceding the 10 commandments asserts the following. God.
Why you have not given me any reason why I should care about what the Bible says yet. You are presupposing that what is in the Bible matters. And I'm willing to accept that. But it is your burden of proof to determine that I should take that seriously. But what did he say? Insert the following.
God spoke all these words. You see, if the 10 commandments, as great as they are, were given by any human authority, then any person could say,
funny or no?
Who is this man Moses? Who is this king or queen? Who is this government to tell me how I should behave?
Now, luckily, we can turn again to the evidence of psychological studies to counter the belief that God's word is somehow essential in creating a sense of morality.
Go on, Jesus Drown. I don't want to say that, so I'm going to call you JDB. What's your thoughts on Prager U? Just, because that doesn't tell me much, even though I am heavily criticizing both Dennis and Rationality Rules here. I do tend to be falling closer to Rationality Rules, but I absolutely agree with a lot of what Dennis Prager says. So I'm not like, no, I'm genuinely interested. What do you mean by this?
Aaron Lorenzian has coined the phrase that secular societies climb the ladder of religion and then kick.
Hey, somebody's been paying attention. Let's clap. Let's clap for Seabass. Good job, man. Good job. Glad you figured it out.
It away. By which he means that although religion played an important role in the initial construct of group identity in society, today secular institutions combined with strong economies have meant that the group-binding role played previously by religion is now played by other institutions. In Japan, for instance, Shinto and Buddhism are the religious ladders that they've climbed. In the past, these religions provided the Japanese with their epistemology, a theory of knowledge, ontology, the way the world is.
So this is what we were talking about before. I apologize. I think Misanthropic and Altruist said it, but that religion was inevitable. What he's talking about right now is how we understood the world before we had the tools to understand the actual physical laws of the world and how to understand understand the world in a way that was able to be replicated and trusted. JDB says it's his fake university to push his Christian agenda. Yeah, it's sad. That's a big part of what I do on this channel. As a conservative atheist, I was never Trumper in 2016, but the Overton window, a whole thing. So whatever. People call me conservative, and I guess I'm conservative. But I'm conservative. I mean, I'm also atheist, and I don't understand why these two groups can't get along. Now, it makes sense why many atheists don't align with, like the Republican Party and stuff like that. But on the ground level, like your average conservative person, like, I mean, we'll call it the Judeo-Christian agenda. And the idea is that like the atheistic community used to be about not falling into dogma. But then, especially with the Rona regime, all the atheists became dogmatically leftist, trusting the government, trusting Dr. Fauci, trusting everything, when we now know that all of that was BS. And so what I'm trying to do here is to show everyone who is tribalistic, whether it's a Seabass, whether it's a far right wing, whether it's a leftist, we can all come together and talk about, instead of the policies, instead of this, instead of that, let's figure out how to talk to each other better, to figure out what it is that we actually want for our society. Because there's going to be some differences, but not really. Not really. At the end of the day, we all want a good life. There's differences in how we define that, and there's ways to make it so that your definition of happiness can be played out and your definition of happiness can also be played out, as America was intended to do from the very beginning. But then you have people like this who force their idea as the only idea. And so people who are not as smart as me, who don't care as much as me, will say, okay, well, I guess I'm not a Christian, so I must be a bad person. It doesn't matter what I do anymore. Oh, the government's right. Yeah. That is people like you, Seabass. Everything that you hate in society right now is because of people like you. So I guess you got what you wanted. Yeah, and that's exactly that's exactly what the type of mindset that we're doing here is like, can we just look at some conversations between people who know some stuff and just talk about it? Does this person being honest? Does this person making good points? It does. That's why I'm not like a headline chaser. This has been brewing for a month. I just want to get our country to a place where we can just talk to each other. We can yell and scream and disagree, but we can talk to each other. Guys, can I get one more like? One more like, please. I know there's one of you here who hasn't liked yet. Please, one more. See, that says 5,000 years ago, all you had to know was the truth. All you had to know the truth was the stars, which are still able to tell us the word of God, but too blind to see it. Okay, explain it. Then explain it. Agreed. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you have to be a far left SJW. Exactly. I think you found the right channel, brother. I think you found the right channel. Yeah, Seabass is, I am very happy that we have people like Seabass here, because this is a look at the real world. There's people like this in the real world. And, I could derail the show to talk about, every comment that he makes. But, sometimes he makes comments that are relevant. And that's all I care about. I don't care if you disagree with me. I don't care if you want my destruction. As long as you got some ideas that make me think, you are welcome here. You are welcome. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. That's all about. Cope! Give it a shot. Give it a shot. You just said, what did you just say? You get banned from everywhere except here. So by definition, I am the most open-minded person you have ever encountered. Give it a shot. You won't. You won't. But thank you, MA. I appreciate that.
Reality, the way we ought to act, and even their aesthetics, what constitutes beauty. But as we've learned more about the universe, all of these steps of the ladder have been either replaced or modified. The same is
One more
true of
like,
the
guys. Come on,
Anglosphere
one
when it
more,
comes
one
to
more, one
specifically
more.
Christianity. Dennis and American conservatives in general are very fond of saying Judeo-Christian instead of Christian, but this is all narrative control. The term Judeo-Christian didn't appear until the 19th century, and for the vast majority of history, Christians have not got on too well with Dennis's kind.
Standing by.
That's not exactly what we call
convenient. Where once Christianity
that was the same clip when he said genocide.
provided the Anglosphere its epistemology, ontology, morality, and aesthetics, we've replaced or modified each step.
It's so crazy to me. Like when I saw the image of this woman, like this is woman. Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? Come on. What happened? What the hell? There was just a church in here. There was a woman in a church. Where did it go? Am I stupid? Okay. Well, sorry.
Thy neighbour means having a decent welfare state. Seventh, and final for now, suppose Dennis got his rigid, outdated interpretation solidified. How
did we pass this already? I don't think so. Sorry, guys. I was trying.
It's not because if I ate meat, I'd be violating my state's rules. No,
we got past that.
And infrastructure. So even if religiosity reduced the need for a police force, and they certainly ain't down. You want to ensure that tons of people live authentically, just as all three of the aforementioned do when they hold the reins, then you're going to need a big state. But to be sure to cover all angles here, it's more likely that when Dennis says,
have everybody live by the 10 Commandments,
he doesn't mean that we force others to live by the 10 Commandments.
Okay,
because in this hypothetical to understand the campaign and concerns of those who protest in the first place. If everyone lived by, say, Hindu scripture, we also wouldn't need a police force. Dennis throws out lofty controversial claims like this all throughout his alternative education, and I've opted to not comment on many of them. I've had to pick and choose my battles here. Still, I thought I'd give this one a response, since the narrative that the zealous opt for smaller governments is among the most ridiculous claims I've ever heard, and yet it's quite popular at the moment. Despite all his talk of freedom, Dennis won't be happy until he has his cake and makes you, through governmental oppression, eat it too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, if we've covered all of this already, but only by a few minutes. But yeah, man, I've been telling both No Freedoms and Seabass, like, yo, I can't have these kind of conversations. Like your last, Seabass, your last comment, I can't put that up. But in Discord, I don't care. I don't care. Come in and say all of the things that you want to say about Mercury and retrograde and why you believe in astrology when you're a Christian. I want to hear it. We all do. But you want to sit in the comments and hide behind what even is this? Like is that like a cracked sidewalk? Like what even is your picture? But hey, some people just can't handle actual conversation. And I get it. I get it. It's not for everybody. And, you know, we'll make it work without you, bro.
Dennis Prager is anti-freedom.
Okay. All right. A bygone relic.
Because if you're not accountable to God for your behavior, then you will have to be accountable to people for your behavior, to the state.
For Dennis, being accountable to society spells catastrophe, and he's expressed this multiple times for decades.
Thank you for the like.
He emphasized this even more directly in his series of videos on the Prager U website about the 10 Commandments.
The recipe for a good...
Okay, I got the example. Okay, so 5,000 years ago, all you had to know was the truth, and the stars were able to tell us the word of God. Okay, let's go through your comments. Then I said, explain it. So you said, then I want destruction. That is not an explanation of this. Then you said, I can get banned from everywhere except here. Also, not an explanation for this. Then you said the banks are failing and you want to make a better world. That seems like it could be something relevant. But I don't understand what the banks failing have anything to do with seeing the truth in the stars from 5,000 years ago. So then you said that I'll give you a shot, and yeah, you're right, I did miss it. Okay, November 2021, Mercury retrograde around star Spica, and back towards the sun. Spica represents King David in the stars. Mercury is the rock. The sun is Goliath. In January, Russia invaded Ukraine. Zelensky is, and it says Zelensky is King David, and Putin is Goliath. So, okay, the sun is Putin. And the sun invaded the stars. Okay. You're a moron.
The world is all there in these 10 sublime commandments. But there is a catch. The 10 commandments are predicated on the belief that they were given by an authority higher than any man, any king, or any government. That's why the sentence preceding the 10 commandments asserts the following. God spoke all these words.
Did he though?
You see, if the 10 commandments, as great as they are, were given by any human authority, then any person could say, who is this man Moses? Who is this king or queen? Who is this government to tell me how I should behave?
Now, luckily, we can turn again to the evidence of psychological studies to counter the belief that God's word is somehow essential in creating a sense of morality.
Seabass, I would love to hear you actually address any of the things in the video. Like you're preaching, and then people will bite on your bullshit, and then you just have stuff like this to say. But why can't you address anything that's happening on screen? Like, why can't you be part of the conversation? If you're so confident in your Christianity, then why are you not batting down everything that I say when I say that it's, that religion is stupid? You should be like, no, that's wrong because X, Y, Z. Because let me tell you something. I know you would never be, you would never have the balls to actually make a channel yourself. But if you did, and I happen to be in your chat, I sure shit would ask you the questions that you're not asking me. I agree. You should indeed get help. MA says, Parry, I don't know what these words are a thing, and we can... What are these? Please help me out. What are these? Any film says, I don't think that Mercury left the solar system and came back. Be cool if it did, though. Okay, but it's not about what Prager says. It's about what I'm saying about religion and how it relates to the conversation. But you can't do that. All you can do is just have your own little conversation by yourself and hope that somebody else bites on your bullshit. You can't actually engage with anybody else. That's why you're so scared to come into Discord. Not because you're too cool for us, but because you know that if you actually have to stand behind anything, you're going to fold. You're going to fold. But, God's behind you. So, us lowly heathens, you would never be able to live down. Oh, man.
Aaron Lorenzian has coined the phrase that secular societies climbed the ladder of religion and then kicked it away, by which he means that although religion played an important role in the initial construct of group identity in society, today secular institutions combined with strong economies have meant that the group-binding role played previously by religion is now played by other institutions. In Japan, for instance, Shinto and Buddhism are the religious ladders that they've climbed. In the past, these religions provided the Japanese with their epistemology, a theory of knowledge, ontology, the way the world is, morality, the way we ought to act, and even their aesthetics, what constitutes beauty. But as we've learned more about the universe, all of these steps of the ladder have been either replaced or modified. The same is true of the Anglosphere when it comes to specifically Christianity. Dennis and American conservatives in general are very fond of saying Judeo-Christian instead of Christian, but this is all narrative control. The term Judeo-Christian didn't appear until the 19th century, and for the vast majority of history, Christians have not got on too well with Dennis's kind.
That's not exactly what we call
convenient. Where once Christianity provided the Anglosphere its epistemology, ontology, morality, and
this I don't remember why, but this is what I wanted to stop on before. If there was no religion and you saw this picture, what would you think? What would you think is going on here? Obviously, religion exists, so we're talking hypotheticals. But what would you think is going on? Would this seem like normal human behavior outside of that context of us making it normal the same way we have made being trans normal? Okay. Well, please give me a lie. I know you won't because you can't because I haven't lied. But please give me one lie that I've told. MA says, shout out to all the Christians who spend more time learning Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic to read the original text for themselves. This is time not spent pretending to be wise and pious on the internet. Hebrew even. Yep. Shout out to those Christians because they believe in something and they care about it. People like Seabass believe in a thing because it's convenient to boost their self-esteem. Well, I'm better than you because I'm a Christian. Like, I know these things that I don't actually know, but never said it was my name. I just said I was the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second. I did that. But yeah, I mean, that's really like the only context that this would even make sense. It's some massive, emotionally, what's the word? Just somebody help me. Emotionally dense? That's not the word, but you know what I mean. Like an emotionally dense thing. And for so many people, like this chick has a different feeling than this dude, who has a different feeling than this chick, who has a different feeling than this dude. And this chick seems like she's kind of just phoning it in. So what are we really doing here? Why do we need to pretend that religion needs to be a pretext for us to come together and be a community? We already have concerts. We could expand the types of places where people come together to experience this community, experience this awe of being part of something bigger than yourself. Or let's just let them all become trans.
And aesthetics, we've replaced or modified each step. As an example of the religious ladder being kicked, Ara looks at Scandinavian societies, which are some of the least religious in the world, but where trust in the secular institutions is very high. He states, in priming experiments, Azim Sharif and I have found that subtle exposure to words such as police and judge increased generosity between strangers as much as God-related words did. The same secular notions ruptured the mental connection between religion and morality. Professor Azim Sharif himself explains the importance of these findings in his edX course on the science of religion.
Is religion necessary to encourage cooperation at the levels that we now see? Now here, the answer is a clear no. There are many routes to cooperation, and there have been many mechanisms that have been identified by psychology that encourage moral behavior. Now, this helps explain why some of the most harmonious and functional countries on the planet happen to be some of the least religious. How have these countries managed to get there? Well, one strong explanation is that cooperation is achieved through a trusted set of secular institutions that let the rule of law be the deterrent rather than the fear of God.
Azim concludes by stating,
and indeed, if you look across countries, the strength of the rule of law is one of the strongest negative predictors of the importance of religion. All of this is to suggest that the places with high rates of atheism can still be remarkably cooperative. The atheists just respond to different deterrents.
Finally, in Professor Phil Zuckerman's book, Society Without God, he looked at the secular Scandinavian countries and concluded the following. It is a great socio-religious irony, for lack of a better term, that when we consider the fundamental values and moral imperatives contained within the world's great religions, such as caring for the sick, the infirm, the elderly, the poor, the orphaned, the vulnerable, practicing mercy, charity, and goodwill towards one's fellow human beings, and fostering generosity, humility, honesty, and communal concern over individual egotism. These traditional religious values are most successfully established, institutionalized, and put into practice at the societal level in the most irreligious nations in the world.
The most irreligious nations in the world today. And again, you said, I've already told you, I look for nothing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you were supposed to tell me a lie. Remember, you said you believe your own lies, and then I said, what have I lied about? And then you just said other shit. You were just saying things. And then you came out with, the subject here is how to create a better world. And my answer is be patient. So you just want to sit on your ass and you believe God is going to come save you. And you think that is convincing to somebody who doesn't believe in God that that is the way. Failure. If you are a messenger of God, you are a failure. You're not. But if you were, if I was God, I would not be happy with you.
Hence, perhaps there's a really simple explanation for why Dennis despises experts and academia. It's because the evidence contradicts his biases and narrative. He preaches the value of freedom, fighting against those who would tightly confine your thoughts, all while promoting the most suffocating ideas to have ever wasted our time.
Right? Hatred is foolish.
Throughout this
is
episode,
the last chapter, and I am very excited to hear from you guys about this one.
Focused on the sociological elements of morality. Dennis speaks as though...
Oh, yo, you joined the Discord? I'm definitely, with a name like that, and you've been on point, with a few comments, and you've been on point. Make sure you hit that link. If one of the mods, there are no mods here. Awesome. Let me drop the link, even though it's in the description. I know nobody will go there. So please, yeah, it is free to join Discord. I just dropped the link. It is free. After every single show, we go in and do like a panel type of discussion. And the idea is that, of course, you know, YouTube has its rules, and we will be able to engage with people like Seabass and No Freedoms openly, which I want to do. It's just because of YouTube.
Our notions of good and bad are predicated on specifically belief in God, and even more specifically, belief that his God has said that certain things are good or bad.
If God doesn't say love your neighbor as yourself, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
But the evidence against Dennis is overwhelming. Religion, let alone Dennis's theism, is not necessary to foster moral behavior and cooperation, as is ironically evidenced by the success of many of the most secular countries in the world. And again, this isn't a surprise. Freedom encourages innovation, and secularism is about freedom, namely religious freedom. In an interview in 1959, Bertrand Russell was asked what advice he'd give to future generations, and here's what he dispensed in relation to social cohesion and morality.
The moral thing I should wish to say to them is very simple. I should say, love is wise, hatred is foolish. In this world, which is getting more and more closely interconnected, we have to learn to tolerate each other. We have to learn to put up with the fact that some people say things that we don't like. We can only live together in that way. But if we are to live together and not die together, we must learn a kind of charity and a kind of tolerance, which is absolutely vital to the continuation of human life on this planet.
That, my fellow apes, is why secularism is paramount. Anyhow, we've got 2 more episodes yet to come in this series. The first is on metaethics, where we can really delve into the philosophy of morality, and the second is on wisdom.
No Bible, pretty much no wisdom. That's the way it works.
And, you know, we're very tempted to make a 7th episode, dedicated to Dennis's strawmanning of social justice, and especially transgenderism.
Men don't give birth. If men give birth, why do we only know this now? Why didn't all the scientists of history know that?
They don't.
Did we just discover that men give birth?
But we'll leave this one for patrons to vote on. Talking of which, due to the topics and claims we're discussing, we're often getting demonetized or even having our videos age restricted. We understand why, of course, but this nevertheless significantly reduces our ability to justify taking on certain topics.
So, you know, we're only certainly a certain way through the master program. If you guys enjoyed this, then I'm definitely down to do the rest of the series from Rationality Rules as it comes out. You know, if he's gonna do a 7th video, he did 3 here, so there'll be 4 there. We can work with it. I think this is a really, really important series here. I think the idea that we need to see people who are thought leaders, people who are respected in their space, be criticized and critiqued by people who are respected in other spaces. The last thing we want is to keep ourselves in an echo chamber. Like, that's easy. Just go on Twitter or TikTok and just like don't be like conscious about anything, and you will fall into some kind of bullshit tribe. But the hey, we got the okay MA, we doing it. I'm trying to spice things up, guys. I know that, you know, we're at a weird place. You know, it's you know, the election season's coming up, so that's gonna give us lots of stuff. But right now, things are kind of just like dead. You know, it kind of works out for me because I'm not like a headline chaser. You know, sometimes like with my VODs that I drop every single day, so make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, and even if it doesn't give you a notification, every single day there is a short video that comes out, whether I am streaming or not. But you know, I wanna do more. So I'm working on getting a guest for the whole show for Friday. I want to have a discussion. I want to start bringing more people on. Timcast, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Tim Pool and Timcast. They just started a Discord server, and there's a little bit of an issue because my old Discord got deleted, and the email is tied and whatever. But they're working on it, and hopefully I'll find some more people in there. I really want to start doing more. But guys, I'm just at that in between space where when somebody sees 1.0K subs, they're just like, you're a nobody. And I get it. But we're gonna grow. We're gonna continue to grow. And we're gonna start getting people on who are not just only friends, but people who are legitimately intelligent and can legitimately challenge me. Who are willing to come up on screen and actually show their face so that I can run a show and not be one of the 6 squares where I'm the only one cammed up. But the Jimmy Dean in the building for the last minute. Thank you for showing up, bro. But I kind of am a shower. If I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I got some growth to me, but I definitely am a shower. Point being, I'm working very hard on trying to, you know, elevate what we're doing here. But it's difficult when I'm at this size. So this is the most crucial. I mean, other than getting monetized, so that I can legitimately, you know, make this a line of work for me. Other than that, this is the most crucial time in my YouTube career for you guys to help and you know, go whatever other channels, you know, you're on the Pine Creek channel, ask them if they ever heard of me. Oh, you should debate the Indian Jesus. Oh, you should bring the Indian Jesus on. That's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to start getting people on here to talk about things. And we're not just going to have to, you know, just react to videos. Like, I have a lot of opinions, but I'm not like, I mean, I'm very concise. So like, if you ask me a question, then I'll just answer it with my opinion that is very, very well thought out already. I just think about stuff. Like, put something random in the comments that you want my opinion on, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. That I already have the opinion right there. So it's not something that like I can really opine on, and like I could definitely bore you by drawing it out. I'm a good storyteller. I definitely could do that, but I don't want to do that. I want to talk about actual stuff. And in order for me to be a part of this world, part of this ecosystem where people are actually paying attention and people are talking about things that actually matter, in order for me to be a part of that, I need just a little bit of a push. And I know that, you know, like I said, by the summertime, election season is going to pick up. We're going to have more people looking for stuff. And I know, you know, with a channel, you get ebbs and flows and stuff. But this is the time. This is the time that if you guys are getting kind of, you know, a little bored of just like, okay, what conversation are we reacting to today? Then I need your help. I can't do it alone, guys. I can't do it alone. I'm doing everything I can, and the channel is growing, but it's slow because I've specifically spent a lot of time making sure that it's not just about me putting out videos to get money. It's about building a community. I genuinely care so much about this community, about you guys, about what this can be. I wish I could express to you how exactly how much, because if you could see it, you'd be like, oh yeah, like I'm going to do everything that I can, because this is going to be a place that people like Seabass and everybody else are going to be able to express themselves, be able to learn, be able to talk to others, all of that stuff. That is what I want to do. I can't do it alone, guys. I can't do it alone. So if you have other, if you know other smaller YouTubers, if you know other people who would be willing to debate anything, bring up my name. Share a VOD, share a short video on something that they might be interested in. So like I said, on Friday, I'm hoping to have a guest. I can't promise that. I'm hoping. I've gotten a tentative yes, but I don't know exactly what the show is going to be. So I'm looking forward to that. I have so many ideas, guys, but you know, I can't do everything. But I do appreciate every one of you guys. I really love that you spend your time with me, and especially those of you who have parted with your hard-earned money. It means the world to me. So thank you for partying with me. Once again, I am your resident conservative atheist host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, which should be in Discord in about 30 seconds, I am out of here.